All right.
So, we're at work yesterday. He's getting text messages. And he's asking me for like some Google information or something like that. I go, he's asking for it now.
Did you not get one, Matt?
Highly doubtful.
No, there's plenty out there. Where are they all? Oh, yeah, there's plenty there.
I go, I'm not text Mark. Oh, he gave me two. Let's go. I need it now. And he goes, what do I say? I go, just don't answer.
All right, so good morning, everyone. Where is the sign-in sheet right now? Who's got that?
I do.
All right. If you could make sure that you are signed in, because if you don't sign in, it didn't happen, and you have to come here and do this again with me in the future. So that, what's that? Who are we missing?
Eric T, Mike F.
So Mike F is on FMLA right now. Eric T is back up at SAPI, but this isn't supposed to be everyone.
Oh.
Yeah, we have what we have. So instead of how Edwin used to do this, where we were doing this once a year with everyone all at once, I'll be doing this 4 times a year. And so we can stagger this, get people in as needed. Right now we have a slight lull in our scheduling because of a couple of jobs that moved out. So we do have an opportunity for several of you to take this. Everyone except Wesley has a gap in his schedule because a couple of jobs moved out. Don't worry. We've got Kenny, we've got Eric T. Barry wants to start doing relay programming and relay testing, so we got a whole bunch of other people. And
Jay's been asking before Barry's.
I'll believe it when I see it.
hey, I just bought a possibly working CMC 256 off of eBay. So 1, we'll see if that works, and 2, we'll see if anyone can use it. So, you know, progress. Progress. What did Deadpool say to Wolverine? Till you're 90. So, today's training is going to cover Nfpa 70E in the morning, as well as CPR, First Aid, AED for those who are enrolled for this afternoon. That is what we're going to be going through today. But as always, I encourage you to please ask questions. Let's go on tangents and let's have a real discussion. I know you know the hazards that we deal with, and there are a couple of items that I'm going to have to cover and to ensure that you know about them, to ensure that we have covered them. But aside from that, all of you are professionals, all of you know me, and I know that we are not going to have a very fruitful day if I am just talking at you the entire time. So when you have items that you want to discuss, if we have gray areas that we need to go through and that you want to understand the nuance of, let's have that conversation. Before we get started with all of that, though, we've got a new employee, Matt Bucher. Matt, would you raise your hand?
Hey guys.
Hey, can you introduce yourself and tell us just a little bit about yourself?
My name is Matt. I'm from Florida. 25. Got basically no experience in electrical work. Started out doing aircraft maintenance, built some planes for Boeing for 2 years. Then went back home to Florida and built missiles for Lockheed. And then, you know, I've done some work for Bill Sloboda privately. You know, did a house for him. His parents' house, but yeah, looking forward to it.
Rocket
Thanks for having me on
mechanic. We
board.
actually got one.
We got a rocket mechanic, and once we have a rocket scientist, our work will be fulfilled at that point.
Not a very good thing.
Hey, none of my stuff.
That's right. It's always my stuff was fine. It was the other
It was
guy.
hilarious if these doors flew off and flew.
Yeah, I will say the guy who killed himself worked in my building.
Everyone signed in?
I've been real quiet. Yeah.
In a parking lot.
Nick's dad doesn't sign
It
it.
was he did it in a parking lot after he had already gone through like 16 hours of investigation. So like, no, I just worked out.
You know what? This has been stressful.
But for Matt's benefit also, could we start off by just doing very quick introductions? You guys can talk to him during the breaks, of which we will have plenty, but just introduce yourself, who you are, and what department you work for, so that Matt can get to know you as well. Barry, you want to start us off?
Hey Matt, I'm Barry. I'm in the engineering department. I worked at CE Power previously with a lot of the guys here, and I joined in August.
My name is Kenny, engineering department as well.
Been here for like 2 years now, so.
George Al mentioned the other day, field services.
Well, don't know. I do the other day. Field services.
Wesley Moore's Field Services and Relay Tech.
Me, Andrew, I'm an electrician, field services.
Yeah, we're not going to cover this HR violation right here. Javier?
Javier, Field Services.
John?
I'm John, apprentice technician, field services.
Kurt?
Kurt, Apprentice, Field Services.
Eric Barr, field services.
All right. Well, thank you, guys. So,
Oh, next dad.
Next dad,
oh, we can't always choose who our children are, huh?
He's leaving Nick home next week, going with me and Bob.
All right. So a couple of other items requested at the top of the day. One is our safety moment. Obviously, we have been dealing with some bitter and extreme colds lately. So as always, if you are having any issues with your PPE or your clothing portal, if you need additional clothing, please reach out to me and make sure that you are getting that on order so that you have everything, the winter parka that the FR uniform portal has is particularly nice. Anyone in here have one of them? What do you think of it? Works pretty all right?
As far as Parker goes, yeah.
Yep. So make sure you have that cold weather clothing. In addition to that, I do have the electric hand warmers. Bob and George can tell me they work pretty all right. Yeah?
They work fairly well. It's only on top. I know that Mike had bought it on eBay or whatever. And they on top and bottom. And
Yep.
A little more. Only lasts about 3 hours. You keep going high.
Yes. Well, and I've got multiple sets for everyone. So if you need a set to keep yourself warm, feel free to take one or two from my desk upstairs in the office. One other item for people I'm not going to call out by name, but I'm going to stare at them because I need them to hear this. Your driver's license must go with you literally everywhere that you go on site because many of our customers do have access requirements or proof of residency and or proof of identity requirements in order for you to be on site. Likewise, sometimes you are driving company property. Please have your license on you at all times. No exceptions. We're not singling anyone out here. I am not mentioning anyone by name as part of this.
Wyman Gordon did not have a license on him?
No, it wasn't Wyman Gordon. Yes, again, this is totally anonymous, and we're not judging here. I'm just putting out a
we don't judge?
brief. Yes, we don't name and shame. I am just putting it out there. Please always have your license with you. It is important for our access requirements on site, and it's not just because I'm being a hard ass about it. Several of our customers do have restrictions that you will not be allowed on site if you do not have your license with you. Any other safety items or safety minute things that anyone has seen over the past month that you'd like to discuss? Again, this is meant to be our Nfpa 70E training, but this is also always an open forum that we are always trying to improve as a company, and if there is something that needs to be said, let's have it out. Go ahead, Andy.
Along with the cold, bitter temperatures, it's not just cold, it's also all the ice that accumulates on the ground. Slipping hazards, falling, tripping,
Yes.
breaking bones, hitting your head.
Yes.
These are all serious things. And if we're out alone in the solar field like I have been lately, and you slip and fall and hit your head, who's going to get you?
So first of all, we should be avoiding wherever possible doing solo work, at least where we don't even have a customer escort. I would say feel free to get a set of the elastic crampons. If you don't already have them, expense them to the company. I have 2 sets of them, and I wear one down every single winter. We've also been dealing with, not just our customers, but us personally have been dealing with a salt and magnesium shortage because who knew all of the southern states that are now getting all of this weather were in no way prepared for it, so we thought we'd be magnanimous up here in the Northeast and send all those supplies down there. and now we're buried under literal inches of ice right now. So Andy brings up a very good point. Be careful and exercise your stop work authority where necessary. If the customer has done literally nothing to clear our way and give us access to the site, you call me, you call Mark, or you call the account manager, because we are sending that back and pushing it back on the customer. Yes, we are there to do work, but the customer still needs to provide us reasonable access to site. And we have gotten the pushback of, well, you guys have all-wheel drive vehicles. That doesn't mean a damn thing if the gate is literally frozen solid and is behind several inches of ice.
That happened to us 2 days ago.
Yeah,
It's like
exactly.
almost you.
It's almost like I have been listening to you guys. Wesley, I think I saw you have something.
I was going to suggest the
Yes. Yeah, so they're rubber crampons. They basically just have metal studs on them. They work for as cheap as they look. They do work phenomenally. So, what's that? And good for ice fishing also. And you can absolutely expense them to the company. They're usually one size fits most. They have a small and a medium. You just stretch them across your boots. You have them. They help you out. Take them off when you're done with it. Any other safety moment items or any other concerns specifically with the weather that we've been encountering? This has been an interesting February, to say the least, between the ups and downs with the temperature, the extreme cold, followed by the unseasonable warmth, and then this huge deluge of rain. Anyone in one of the towns that flooded and then froze over?
Me.
Yeah.
My whole house, all around my entire house, 4 inches of ice.
Yeah. Did you have something else, though?
I did something I noticed this year, more so than other years, is there's a lot of ice sheets flying off of vehicles when you're driving.
Yes.
And I would caution everyone to use a good, safe distance away from the vehicle in front of you.
Yes, and we're talking about that internally also, about how we can be better stewards and to be the better people in terms of cleaning off our roofs. Now, most of you have the ladder racks on the top of the roofs, which actually help. That breaks up what we have, so we don't have glare ice shield or sheets flying right off the top of our roof. Where possible, please do try and be a beneficial steward to other people on the road. When possible, clear off your own truck. But if that's not possible, do everything you can just to ensure that you are not creating the next hazard and getting our name on the news for the worst possible reasons. But to Andy's point, yes, do be very aware, especially of the suburban minivan moms who do have just gigantic sheets of ice on that, as well as about a 4-inch hole through the rear window that they see through, and 2 4-inch holes on the front windshield that they see through, as they hope and pray that their front and rear defrosters eventually clear off the block of ice that their car has been entombed in. Yeah, exactly. Well, that or you just stick your head out the window while you're going on the pike. Yeah, exactly. All right, all really good points. Any other safety topics that you want to cover while we're at it? All right. So we're going to get started with our Nfpa 70E. Like I said, these are items that you are aware of. These are items that you know. And I'm really happy to see that the crayons are already helping out here right now. No judgment. I gave them to you for a reason. I know this is material that you've already covered. But like I said, not only is this an opportunity for us to recalibrate and have that discussion, it is an opportunity just to come together and say that you were in the room while I was telling you about these things, so that when you're lying on your hospital bed because you did something totally stupid, I can say, didn't you listen to a damn thing I said in that class? Great.
I found approach in the crossword puzzle.
You found what? There you go. Excellent. So, sorry, we'll go through this right now. We're going to... This is kind of the generic thing for out to... Don't worry about it.
Princess Bride sponge.
So starting first with safety, why we do this, and what's in it for you. I know I've told you this before, that I do genuinely care about everyone that we have in this company, and my role as your safety officer is twofold. I have loyalty to you and I have loyalty to the company. One of my duties is to ensure that the company is protected from liability, which is why we do these training classes. These are here to ensure that you have been informed, taught, and understand the requirements for safe work practices. But the other much more important duty is to you, to ensure that you have the tools that you need and that we are able to have the discussion on how you work safely and how you ensure that you are going to go home safely and whole with every single one of your fingers, toes, and any other appendages that you happen to care about at the end of the day.
All your phalanges.
All your phalanges, all your wiggly bits, however you may name them. Come on, grow up, Wesley. Grow up. But
I thought he said lady bits at first.
I said wiggly bits. Yeah, Wesley's bits.
It's been cold out, nothing's wiggling right now.
This is very fair. But I do mean it that I care deeply about all of you, and I take my job very seriously, that I cannot always intercede and just stop work wherever possible, and that's why I push on you as one of the most important tools that you have while you work here is your stop work authority. So go with, I don't know, Matt, what do you think stop work authority is?
It basically gives you the right to stop work if you see fit for like a safety issue or whatever.
Yep, that's it exactly. Anyone think they got a better definition? I'm not trying to one-up him, I'm just saying, anyone else have a better definition that we exercise and work with here in the company? So stop work authority is exactly that. When you see any safety issue, any reason that work should not proceed due to safety or quality also, your stop work authority extends to quality. So I do want you to exercise that when you say, we are going to do a shit job if we keep going this way. All of you are ambassadors of this company and ambassadors of the work that we can do. When we do shitty work, we don't get called back to the customer. If we see an opportunity to stop, recalibrate for 5 minutes and save ourselves 50 hours in repairs down the line, I want you to be using your stop work authority for that as well. Otherwise, whenever you see unsafe conditions that would impact you or others, you have the authority, the right, and what we're going to go into right after this, the obligation to stop that work and to be part of the solution. Stop work authority does not mean that you stop work, go back to your van, and just wait there until someone wonders, why is Jay in his van and just listening to music the entire time? No one wonders that, right?
No, he's relaxing.
He's relaxed. No, stop work authority means that you are part of the solution, that you are going to find those items, that you are going to be part of the solution in correcting them, and that you will allow that work to proceed once you have mitigated the hazard. Now, beyond that is going to be stop work obligation. Who wants to give me a definition of that? Kurt, what's stop work obligation?
Our obligation to stop work if we
You're killing me, man. So, what does that mean to you?
stop work obligation.
Yeah.
What did it say?
No, you gave me a definition. What does that mean? What was that, Andy?
He said try working with him for 8 hours.
Andy, what is stop work obligation
If I were to
versus...
see something that I saw that it's my obligation to say something and not pretend like I don't see it.
Yes, that is it exactly. It is not just enough to look after yourself. We are in the trenches together, and when we have the wherewithal, because all of you are qualified persons, when you see those hazards and you know better than what someone should be doing, and this doesn't include just our folks, this includes customers, this includes bystanders, this includes the other people who are around us. When you see them doing hilariously stupid things, you do have the obligation to save them from themselves. Now, there is only so far we can go with certain customers before they push back and say, I'm the owner, I deserve to be in shorts and flip-flops while you're doing live switching, but we should still be taking that opportunity to inform them that it's a very stupid decision to be making. Who is the person who was just saying to me the other day that it's amazing how few of our customers customers as well as other contractors observe or even seem to see our yellow and red caution and danger tape. Yeah, that was you, Kurt. So tell me about what you were seeing on that.
Well, the biggest thing was we were doing the VLF testing on some of the cables in Savvy, and we had this like pathway between two cubicles taped off because the cable endings were right at the opening of there. And then thankfully we weren't running the test, but some dude just like comes through that pathway inches away from the cable endings.
Yep.
So if we were actually running the test, they could have gotten shocked.
Could have done that, yeah. I mean, from a safety standpoint, absolutely. Let's just talk about from our own personal frustration and our own testing standpoint. How many people in here have done VLF testing and someone disturbs or kicks the test set or the test cable at minute 56 of an hour-long test? All right, more people than want to admit it right now. And so what does that mean for the test? Start it right on over. So not only are our customers costing us money, they're also severely impacting their safety. And in cases like that, Kurt, I know you're very laid back, but I am investing in you every authority to swear them out when they're doing something like that.
Get the fuck out of here, cocksucker.
All right. Maybe I invest in you every authority to reprimand them kindly. But
Oh, you're recording this?
I am recording this.
Oh, why didn't you say something?
Because it's so much more fun to do it this way. I'm recording this. This is internal.
No one would be.
I'm compiling a greatest hits reel here.
I'm gonna have a lot of material.
No, but I mean it. That stop work obligation extends not just to safety, but to quality. Yes, when we have a customer, like Kurt was talking about, who is basically just coming into site or just coming into our work zone and is potentially disturbing our equipment, disturbing our testing, disturbing us while we're going through that. Yeah, you weren't testing, you weren't injecting at that time, right? No, but if you were, worst case, he could have been seriously injured. Best case, he could have fouled the results and we would have had to spend another hour retesting the cable off of something like that. No, the customer does not always understand what we are doing. The work, for people who like severance, the work is mysterious and vital, but they do need to understand that those barriers are not just there because I gave you a roll of tape and I expect you to use one every single month so I can keep buying more. No, those barriers are there to keep them the hell out of our work zone. So when they are just crossing it as blasé as possible, tell them, if you don't feel comfortable, tell Jay, he'll swear them out. He lives for something like that. But if the customer is still giving us issues, please let myself, let the account managers know, because we need to give that feedback to the customer of, guys, we're losing time with the work that we're doing specifically because of you being in our work zones and going through those areas that we've otherwise barricaded off. We're doing that for our sanity as well as for their safety as part of that. So at this point, all of you are veterans, but I'm curious, how confident are you all that you can identify the electrical hazards? Because one of the things that this last year has taught me, especially with some of the overseas components that we have been encountering, I'm finding new hazards that I never thought I would ever encounter in my career. Anyone else been encountering things that just aren't right with the equipment or the installations that we've been doing, specifically looking at some of the solar sites that have been doing bottom dollar work? Bottom dollar work. Go ahead, Wesley, you had something?
We were all just raising our hands.
Oh, okay, sorry. Everyone, yes. Anyone have anything that they want to share as part of that, just in terms of the hazards that you've seen this year and anything that you'd like to share with the group? Go ahead, Andy.
Going back to solar stuff and installing these inverters that have been notoriously known to explode and combust. Been going and just taking the ones that they consider to be good, sticking them on another site. Like, aren't you just asking for another disaster?
No, we're fixing it. We're fixing it, yeah.
We're just moving the problem.
We're just moving the problem. That's someone else's now. But it is an unfortunate part of it, and so that means those hazards that we are coming across are magnified now. There is equipment out there that I don't feel confident in. I was talking with Bob and George about a 35 kV transformer that I'm not certain that it's not just going to arc over and destroy itself when it is first energized. And from a moral standpoint, I want to tell the customer, have a representative of the manufacturer here, because I don't trust that piece of equipment. From a legal standpoint,
Why the screws in the bushing?
yes.
Will the lips of the dead brake actually go over it, cover it?
No.
No.
Well, they check that out.
Yeah, if you want to see a wild, so Bob, I'll ask, just wait for the break to show Jay that, but if you do want to see a wild installation, I've never seen something that I would consider so irresponsible from an installation standpoint in the entirety of my career. I don't want us anywhere near it, and I'll be working with Wade to draft our opinion for their energization as part of that. But I'm seeing a lot more that is potentially putting us in harm's way. So I want you to be ever vigilant, because there are things that I've never seen in my career. There are things that Bob and George have never seen in their career that I never would expect to even work, and sometimes they don't. Some of these items that we're dealing with are, I don't know if it is going to work in the first place. But we are testing, we are commissioning, and we are kind of the last bulwark before this equipment gets turned on. So I guess the thesis of my story there is, if you see something, say something. Don't assume that it's supposed to be that way, because we're seeing things that I never have before, that a lot of you never have before. If you have the question, raise it. At least get it on paper that we think something is incorrect or something is problematic.
How about Tamworth? I don't know what to explain there.
Yes, you do. It starts with Chaldea, so. But we don't talk about Tamworth. Not anymore. So, sorry, I'm going through several of these items because a lot of these are items that we talk about regularly. What's that, Bob?
I said, it's still burning up there in Tamworth?
They are still running up there.
Are they?
Yep.
Yeah, me and George had looked at it.
Do they need their NERPA compliance?
They must have, because they're up. Well, me and George looked at it, they couldn't get it to sink. So, oh, yeah, they couldn't get it.
So we'll start off with a case study. And I know several of you know this case study because this case study involved a former employee of ours, but it is an important one to bring up. For those of you who remember NBC, and yes, Mr. Casey. So, does anyone want to tell this story, or should I? If anyone remembers it or talk to Tom about it, by all means. I don't have to be the only one to tell it, but it is an important one. This was Narragansett Bay Commission, yeah.
I don't know what story we're on.
Okay. So while performing maintenance work, we had two apprentices go out with a senior level technician. They were to be performing work on one of the two transformers in their yard that was going to be supplying one of their one of their energized facilities. So two transformers, identical, A and B. One on the left, one on the right. Who here has been to NBC to do work before? What's the noise level outside at NBC like? Yeah, loud, almost constantly. So during their work, the senior technician opens up the upstream breaker, opens up the downstream breaker because it's a double-ended substation in order to prevent backfeed. Instructs the two apprentices to start removing the covers, including the high voltage 35 kV covers 15 kV covers that we had on the transformer, and get it prepared for doing that work. Meanwhile, the senior technician who had performed switching was going to be going to other portions of the installation with the customer in order to ensure that they were prepared for the work that they were going to do that day. So these two technicians are disassembling the 15 kV termination box and are literally about 1.5 feet away from 15 kV terminations. Under normal circumstances, not an issue. However, the junior or apprentice level technicians did not verify via a non-contact voltage detector that the circuit was de-energized. The senior technician went out in his suit in order to discharge the cables, and when he touched his discharge cable to the A phase, it immediately flashed, vaporized the cable, fused it, and created a pretty significant 15 kV arc flash. Now, one technician, Tom, was looking at the terminal cabinet when this happened. He was flash blinded for about 2 minutes, he believes, and he was partially deafened and had tinnitus for about 2.5 days thereafter. He was standing about 15 feet away when this happened. The technician in the flash suit at ground zero was thankfully unharmed. However, I did the intake interview with him when he came back, and for those of you who, did any of you work with Sam Adams? Yeah.
Touch off.
Well, still, Sam was shaking and could not stop himself. That he realized, he understood just how close he came to a serious injury that day, because this is not a bullshit story of, yeah, you know, it could have been bad, but it wasn't. Sam is very lucky to be alive today because of what happened with that. And I like to bring that up because, yeah, it's everyone there, even Tom, who was 15 feet away, was directly impacted by that. And while he did not have any long-lasting effects from that, it had a serious impact on the way that he viewed work after that point. So these things happen. Now, what could we have done in order to better mitigate and protect our folks in a case like that? Putting it out there, because I know you all know the answers. What's that? Better training. Use the non-contact. And again, it's one of those things that I trust you. And
Especially if you're going to put on your suit to touch something.
well, yeah, especially if you're going to put your suit to touch something. Yeah, that. So, but on top of that, I also encourage that the 2 apprentice technicians just trusted the lotto. They hung their locks, they didn't verify what we had, and they started disassembling almost immediately. Kurt and John, I'm not going to ask you, Matt, but soon enough I am going to be asking you. Kurt and John, do you feel comfortable enough saying, I'm not going to touch that until I've verified it as de-energized myself, or at least witnessed it as de-energized? That's how I want you to feel about that. You should be seeing it with your own eyes. Verify that things are de-energized. It's why I try and make sure that as many of you as possible have those non-contact voltage detectors out there. You are responsible for your own safety at the end of the day. If you are just blindly hanging your lock on a box without understanding where in the system that you are, then you need to be looking more after your own safety, because while everyone here, I hope, does not necessarily want to injure you at the end of the day, you have to realize that if you are just blindly hanging your lock and then doing work, you are letting them put your life in their hands. So whenever possible, take those verifications, ensure that you are indeed working on something that is totally de-energized, especially when you're dealing with something like 15 kV. Your 480 volt systems generally are going to have higher amounts of available fault current, but your 15 kV systems are going to be the ones that can jump across air and destroy you without you even knowing what happened as part of that.
You can verify that.
Yeah. So I've got your case study in here as well. No, well, and again, Bob and George, in my opinion, did everything right. They were a victim of wrong place, wrong time, but it's another very good case study that shows that electricity is waiting to do one thing and one thing only. And what is that?
Turn you into the flash.
Well, to find ground, and if you happen to be the shortest path to ground, yes, then it is waiting to turn you into the flash. Yeah, I was going to say not the cool kind that goes faster than the speed of light. Yeah, you're gone in a flash. So second case study, and this one I would like Bob and George to share because they are the ones who are here, and when they're gone, then I'll have to make up all sorts of bullshit over what actually happened. But for right now, I'd like them to share that. And Matt, I'd like you to listen because we do have two people who are survivors, and thankfully they were largely unscathed, but they were not without injury as part of this. And it's a good example of being in the wrong place at the wrong time while doing everything right. These things do happen, and so exercising the maximum amount of safety in everything that we do is paramount to making sure that we go home safely at the end of the day. But either one of you, if you would please.
Well, the transformer was de-energized. And we verified de-energized. We took the cover off of the low side of the transformer and actually used the non-contact to make sure it was de-energized. In order to make sure the high side was de-energized, we had to take the cover off the switch. We took the cover off, sat it down, stood up, and boom. That's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Yep. So the ultimate reason for the flash, because I worked on the incident analysis with them, was it happened to be a relatively humid and dewy morning after a cool night. So we had a lot of condensing humidity, and this switch hadn't been serviced in how long?
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, years and years and years. So there were a large number of cobwebs in there. And normally those cobwebs are not a problem because there's relatively limited airflow in some of these pieces of equipment. But the nature of the fact that Bob and George just took off one of the covers was enough to induce a draft inside of it. A moisture-laden piece of cobwebs went across the medium voltage busing that we had in there and immediately flashed. So what was the immediate health impact to you guys?
Second degree burns
Mm-hmm.
to the hand,
Yep.
as well as we were wearing our safety glasses, which we, glad we were, all kinds of copper was embedded into the safety glasses, or would have been in our eyes if we weren't wearing them.
And you lost that magnificent beard you had.
Yeah, that burned quite a bit too.
I was gonna say that's what made it all white.
Oh yeah, only one side really bad.
He had a nice thick beard. He had a nice black beard before that, and it just all came on.
Scared a little bit. Shivered out.
They were also very nice before.
But it is, the flash is as brighter than the sun.
Yep.
So you go blind, and the sound bang is horrendous.
It's also
Yep.
hotter than
Oh yeah, it was tremendous.
Yeah.
Could you break down the details on that? Because you said that you took the cover off, turned around, and sat it down.
Well,
Put the cover
we used,
down.
what the
You guys had
question
your
was-
back to it?
What the question was when we took it apart is that we dropped something in. So,
And no, and
down in front of us. And the plate was about this big.
Set the cover straight down, stood back up, so it got us on the front.
so during the investigation, the pictures that we took afterwards, you can actually see the spider webbing across the bus where it fused in as part of that. So yes, the initial knee-jerk reaction was Bob and George must have dropped something in that broke the ground plane as part of that. Mr. Doherty did not believe for a second that these guys didn't screw up. And then we got pictures, and he did finally come on board after a while on that.
right? It's all
Oh,
on video.
he was an angry bastard.
Yes, yes, he
That's
was.
the only way to describe that man. He is an angry bastard.
But it's the reason that we go through these investigations because it's not about apportioning or assigning blame. It is about fully understanding what happened. And that's why I can confidently say Bob and George did everything right and were in the wrong place at the wrong time as part of that. And they paid a price for it also.
That's all that happened to us.
Yeah, it was a short-term price. You are very fortunate that it wasn't a long-term health impact, but you still paid a price that day for just doing what our jobs were. And you didn't even have a chance after you put it down to verify, oh, it's still energized, time to go back.
We used non-contact to see if it wasn't on.
Yeah.
So,
Go ahead, Matt.
So looking in hindsight, what could they have better done to stay safer and avoid that issue? Because it seemed like it was something that was completely unforeseen, that was out of their control,
So
they had better protected themselves.
So the main item that came away from that was better So the one item that we had for Bob and George off of that were better PPE procedures. Bob had his sleeves rolled up, and had they been all the way rolled down, the degree of second-degree burns would have been mitigated.
And you wore gloves too at the time. But you know, you think about it though, and there's a lot of times in the back of my mind when we're doing a de-energize something.
Yep.
You don't think you need to put your gloves on and put a hood, face shield on. You just assume that it's de-energized, and all you do is just removing the cover.
Yep. And so the only feedback that we had for them was, yeah, better PPE procedures, and it's going to come down to your personal opinion on how you approach that. When it's been indicated as de-energized and you're doing those final checks, yeah, you should be able to take that off without having to fully suit up. But now, when you see Bob do any de-energized checks, everyone has seen that. What is Bob wearing?
Everything.
Bob's wearing everything because Bob never wants to be in that position ever again. And so that's the only recommendation on how we believe that anything could have been mitigated, because ultimately it did come down to the wrong conditions promoting a incident for them in the wrong place at the wrong time. Go ahead, Happy.
One in a million.
Yeah.
That could happen that way. I mean, we were talking about earlier today about doing pad mounts.
Yep.
Energized sampling. And I don't know, I know just about everybody has opened a pad mount here, has seen more cobwebs than you can kick a stick at.
Yes.
So when you open that up, the opportunity of something to do that again is there. Not likely, but it could happen again.
Yep, absolutely. Go ahead, Javier.
The second undocumented feed going into the transformer that you guys were not aware of that?
There was a second undocumented feed going to that switch.
Okay.
Yep. So when we thought we had de-energized, it was re-energized. However, that did not factor into it, because that's the reason that we do our non-contact tests, is to verify that, hey, is there something in there undocumented that would otherwise impact what we're dealing with?
Pre-planning or anything I could have done on their part?
No, it was undocumented. So again, the only feedback that Bob and George received as part of this is, you have your suits. It could have completely mitigated what you're dealing with. You were not in the wrong to not wear it because you assumed that it was de-energized, but that's the only mitigating act that they could have done that would have mitigated the damage to themselves. And so it's just a matter of, if you are unsure, or if you live through something like that, it sucks. It can slow down your work, but don the suit, or in other cases, don long sleeves, don a face shield, don work gloves while you do that. And I will say that Andy and Wesley have both asked me for and use face shields as a regular part of that. Why did you start doing that, Wesley?
Keep the money maker.
Exactly, yeah. If we lose that, we lose all of our relay work. But, I mean, even with the work that you do, generally you're dealing with circuits at 5 amps or less, 120 volts or less. But what have you seen in your career that you know that's not true?
When you said 120 through a CPT?
We're not going to talk about that.
I mean, it doesn't even take an amp to kill you, so.
No, it doesn't.
Doesn't matter how low the voltages you're dealing with, it's still dangerous.
Yeah. And so it's a really good way to ask that, Matt, of what could you have done because they were in the wrong place at the wrong time. They did what the policies promoted, and when you are taking your own safety into account, I encourage you to go above and beyond to whatever level makes sense. And if that means suiting up in that flash suit while you are doing your de-energized checks, it is literally an extra 5 minutes that could change the entire course of your life.
Well, it's like a seatbelt while you're driving, right? You don't always need your seatbelt.
No, you always need your seatbelt.
When
You don't need it till you need it.
so you need it, right? And then if you need it, you gotta wish you had it on.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I'm wearing it.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's not take away from Andy's point. Wear your seatbelts. It's kind of, especially when you're in company property.
Just wear it, right? A lot of the guys see me, I'll go like 0 to 100. You know what I mean? Like real fast and just like. this seems okay, okay, we'll just put like some gloves on and do this. But then there's times where it's like, okay, this is totally expanded, just the normal 480 brake bit, so like now it's a switch that's underneath feeding the whole thing.
Yeah.
Suit everything on.
Yeah, exactly. Again, it's 5 minutes. Those who are designated to do switching have flash chutes issued to them. We want you using them, and 5 minutes to ensure the safety of the job that you're doing. Exercise it, use it. You are empowered to do so, and I want you to do so as part of that. Any other thoughts on those two case studies? They're emblematic of some. I'm sorry, did you have something, Jay?
Dominic's incident have a similar, like there was a...
I was not around for Dominic's incident. I had already left. I didn't do any investigation on that, so I don't know enough details to share it, but I know he was seriously injured as part of that.
I thought there was like an energized line in the system that he was working in that wasn't part of the one line.
I think you're thinking of the fatality that Reuter Haney had back in 2019, because they had a fatality at their facility doing work.
Maybe.
But yeah, Dominic was seriously injured as part of that, but I had already left when I heard that had happened to him, so I don't know exactly what went down. So whenever anything like this happens, it's my responsibility to go through root cause analysis. Now, thankfully, we have not had any serious injuries that I've had to investigate from a root cause analysis, but we do this both for injury as well as for quality, because wherever possible, we look for a better way to do this. And if you've gone through this with me, you know it is painful because I will just keep asking why. But the reason that we do that is that in order to affect organizational change, we need to understand what the underlying root causes. So if you are ever going through one of these incident analyses with me, please be patient with me, because I'm not just trying to make you feel like a dumbass. I am not trying to aggravate you. I am trying to make sure that I understand what we could have done differently, the same way Matt was just asking, what we could have done differently in order to protect you and the company going forward as part of this. So whenever you do see those issues, whenever you encounter any safety items or even quality items, please don't be afraid to reach out to me, because I do need to know about those. I need to record them, and I need to ensure that we are pursuing any improvements we can make in order to ensure that they don't happen again in the future. So I only have data up until about 2020. The data after 2020 is muddled by, I don't know, something that happened in this country in 2020. So getting good data, I don't know either. But getting good data on injuries, fatalities, and all of that related to our industry after 2020 has been difficult, and I expect it to become even more difficult as there are even fewer people to parse that data right now.
Yeah, a lot of people died.
Yeah, well, and so the green is injuries in the or electrically related injuries in the construction, maintenance, and testing field, and the red is fatalities. And you'll see that despite the fact that Nfpa 70E, as well as a lot of OSHA safe work standards, have improved in pretty measurable and significant ways, we're not making a lot of progress. And I can say from the OSHA posted statistics of 2024 into 2025, we're looking at about the same thing, that there are approximately 2,000 serious workplace-related injuries regarding electrical on a yearly basis, and there's still about 150 fatalities every year. Now, going back 50 years, yeah, we're doing a hell of a lot better than that, but we've reached a plateau right now where there are just a number of fatalities, and nearly every single one of those are preventable. And so I want us to forever be a fatality and ideally an injury-free workplace, because I know we had a little bit of a party for 1,000 days. I'm going to spend some real money once we get to 5,000. Now, in terms of where these in terms of where these injuries happen and what contractors are largely responsible for this. You can see that construction and extraction, that is going to be construction and basically any earth moving, are going to be the primary driver of electrically related fatalities and injuries as part of that. Especially for any of you who have seen an excavator working in an area with energized electrical lines. They're fun, aren't they? Yeah, there's a reason that...
Especially when you grab the wire and you sparks coming out.
Yeah, exactly. There's a reason that they are the highest contributor to those injuries. However, right after that is our industry. That is installation, maintenance, and repair. We make up a whole quarter of those potential fatalities and injuries. So that means besides the people who are running the backhoe, we are the next people in line that are most impacted by these items. And then that small orange circle is management, and that's entirely comprised of those people who go beyond our barrier just to take a look closer at what we're doing. Yeah. So that means that we have a lost time incident approximately every 5 hours, an electrically related lost time incident approximately every 5 hours. And again, it's easy to assume that it's not going to be us, and that's the reason that we do training like this, but it still happens, and it will take literally an instant to change your life. So I want you to be safe. The opportunity, the probability that something is going to happen to you, it's a 1 in 6,000 chance that you are going to be involved in a lost time, electrically related lost time incident. And you guys just discovered there's a backside to it, didn't it? There's a 1 in 6,000 chance that you're going to be a result of that. I like to think that all of you folks are eminent professionals and that you will not be the contributor to it. And I don't think you will be. As you're coloring with crayons. I don't think you'll be the contributor. I think you'll be collateral damage. And that means that that stop work authority and stop work obligation is that much more important, because it is not just your own safety. It is the decisions that other people are making that can potentially impact that. And that was the thesis of that first case study, that even as apprentices, you're just told, go and start disassembling that transformer. Those apprentices were standing literally 1.5 feet away from exposed energized 15 kV. They're really fortunate that they didn't drop a single bolt. They're really fortunate that they didn't just bend in to take a look and see if there was any moisture accumulation or anything at the bottom of that terminal cabinet. Because if they moved their head that close to those exposed 15 kV terminations, that would have been the end of them. And they would have not known at all what had hit them as part of that. So don't be the cause of an accident, but I have more faith in that, in you guys, than that. But don't be collateral damage to that either, because you are working around people, especially, like I said, at some of these solar sites, where it's the bottom of the bottom dollar for some of these installations. And I have seen some of these contractors and what they do.
Well, 95% of the workers on the solar side don't speak English.
Don't worry, they're almost all gone.
We're not going to get into that. Now, in terms of where the greatest number of injuries happen, who thinks that it's going to be A, 16 through 19, the beginners? All right, no one of that. How about B, 20 through 29, the cowboys? Raise your hands if that's what you think it is. All right. What about the veterans, 30 through 39? How about the survivors, 40 through 49? And everyone else after that, 50 plus retired? So I know these don't work right now because I don't really have that great a Wi-Fi on there. Come on. But in terms of the greatest numbers that we have, it's going to be the cowboys. It's going to be John. It's No, it's going to be those that are young, passionate, and looking to prove something as part of that. That's a really succinct and excellent way of putting it. That little bit of knowledge is enough to be dangerous as part of that. So you will see that the veterans, those are the ones that have been around and have not a lot of knowledge, but a little bit more knowledge, are still very prone to those potential issues. But by and large, I know it says that should be 20 to 29, I'll change that. But that 20 to 29 range that you have there is going to be the highest incidence of risk that you have with folks. They are going to be the ones that have that little bit of knowledge, but are sometimes moving too fast for that. So for my apprentices, I do ask, please don't be one of those statistics. I want you to always be taking that moment to step back and work as safely as possible.
And as the lead apprentices, please don't be one of the statistics, because I don't want to do the paperwork.
They're not leads if they're still apprentices.
No, I said as a lead.
Sorry, my mistake. Yes, that's right. Jay doesn't want to do the paperwork because he definitely would be the one doing it and not just saying, Matt.
My laptop's
I
breaking.
got to admit, I'm really glad that the company on the whole, we've recognized this statistic, and we've taken that information and applied it to the people where it really counts and matters.
Yes, it is important, and our apprentices are excellent, and we love and appreciate all that you do for the company. But statistically speaking, yes, you are in the highest risk group that we have. So we are going to be looking over your shoulder, and we're going to be making sure that you are doing things correctly, because the statistic on the other side of that is terrifying. We never want you to be in a position where you are not going home safely at the end of the day. Apprentices, you have anything to say about that? Are we giving you all the tools that you need in order to be safe? Just making sure. So another one, and this one might be a little bit more familiar to the engineers that we have in the group, because this was originally published in IEEE 1584, which is the arc flash standard. In the original 2002 edition of IEEE 1584, the reason for the standard, the arc flash standard, or at least the methodology of calculating arc flash, was accompanied by an individual technician who wanted to share why being able to quantify these hazards and what the actual impact of these hazards were as part of this. So, Peter Verbe offered this supplemental to it. My name is Werner Peter Verbe. I'd be pleased to let you use whatever part of my story if it would help prevent other electrical workers from being severely injured or killed as a result of simply trying to do their job. The arc flash burned the shirt off my body. I was severely burned from the waist up. 28% of my body was skin grafted. I have lost the excellent eyesight and hearing that I took for granted. My hearing is deteriorating. I must use hearing aids and have severe tinnitus as a result of the arc blast. My vestibular function, that is, his balance, was damaged as well. I have no sense of smell, either good smells or bad. I suffer from severe headaches when I try to focus on anything close up, that is 1 meter or less. He was live changing fuses on an MCC bucket. Switch was off, live changing fuses, and happened to be at ground zero during one of those replacements. He survived. Almost a third of his body was skin grafted because of the severe burns that he had, but it was enough to change the course of his life, and he was one of the early speakers when IEEE 1584 came out in the early 2000s as the reason for why we needed to address arc flash as the severe hazard that it was. So we'll take a quick break, but an honest question for the folks that we have out there in terms of where do you take your safety most seriously? And I know not everyone takes it as seriously everywhere that they are all at the same time, but it's sometimes telling where we value ourselves the most and sometimes where we take it for granted with what we're doing. So where do you feel that you are taking your safety most seriously? Raise your hands if you feel you're taking it most seriously while you're at home. You're just licking your fingers, right? Okay. So Andy, most seriously at home?
And at work and while driving.
All right, so you're taking your safety most seriously everywhere.
It's true.
What,
I won't even let my wife leave the house, it's so much nice.
what about when you're driving? Anyone take it most seriously when you're doing that? People are crazy out there. Well, while at work?
Yeah.
Everyone
I had
that?
somebody hold a gun, hang a gun out the window a couple weeks ago at me.
That's terrifying.
Yeah, I was on the pike. I was just getting off at 84 on the pike, and I see this car flying up behind me. No, flying up behind me, so I tried to merge into the middle lane to let him go by. He cut into the middle lane. So I looked over, I'm like, kind of like this. So like he slows down, hanging a gun out the window, telling me to pull over. I'm like, let me see it.
I mean, did you report that?
No.
You should. No, people like that shouldn't be on the road. All right. It's your business, but...
Don't let it happen again.
Yeah, that's like every
To be
day.
fair, we were hanging money out the window.
No, it's kind of close to like Andrew's neck of the woods.
Only banks grow. Only good things.
very possible. All right, so let's take a quick break. We'll get back here in 5 minutes and keep things going. But thank you for the attention so far. Quick break though, 5 minutes and we come back to it.
You're still on it? Things like you do. The ADHD is strong with this one.
So Jay, since you couldn't turn on your laptop, you haven't done the CPR? Okay.
That's what I was trying to do last night when I looked.
Yeah. Okay.
I couldn't get into it.
We can still do the practical. I just won't be able to pass you until you do the rest of it.
Get a hold of Steven.
Yeah, Steve, or I guess out to Avixia. You have company email on your phone though, right? Yeah. So, yeah. Talk to Y&Y. I'd say just snap a picture of what it looks like.
Talk to who?
Y&Y, our IT people.
Yeah.
Oh, I've never dealt with them.
Oh.
I think they got a new name now. but-
Avixia, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was like a name, kind of like the.
It's Babu's kid, Yogi.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, 'cause remember the guy that used to work for 3C that now works for Hudson Light and Power?
Oh.
XY.
Yeah, XY, yeah.
That's what I was.
No, Y&Y is the old name of their company. They're Avixia.
Gotcha.
Jerry, you done your crossword?
Oh, I've been done.
You should go.
Bullshit.
Timestamp.
Time stamped. Can't fucking triple stamp the double stamp.
Larry, I'm playing at a diner with these things.
That's the idea. I know it's tough to go through this. We have to, so I might as well have some level of entertainment for the guys.
Shut the fuck up.
At least I'm not the only one taking the class.
I'm gonna keep you alive whether you like
Also,
it or not.
Matt, it should
you're not gonna be gone for like
in my
12 weeks.
defense, I did have the badge that they give you at Amgen because I thought that would be enough to get me in.
That's not a defense. Keep your license with you, always.
Yeah.
Sorry, allegedly.
Who doesn't have their license on at all?
Sometimes I'll like keeping it.
But was it the T badge or was it a permanent badge?
That's the thing I didn't know.
Like there was,
Some sites that give
like I just did the
permanent badge,
Amgen
like at
training
South
yesterday, and it was like saying that there's two different badges. If you're going to be there longer than 2 weeks, they give you a photo badge, and then you don't need an escort. And if you aren't going to be there longer than 2 weeks, they just give you like a regular like badge to scan in the doors, and you do need an escort.
See, you're better than me because you pay attention to me. I just do the trainings to quick.
Oh, that's not.
So I imagine if you have
Oh,
like,
boy.
a non-photo badge, you would still
Oh,
need
boy.
your driver's license, but I could see where if you had the photo badge, you wouldn't think you needed it. Because it's got your picture. it's
No,
got
I
your
can say when you are driving to site, you are taking your driver's license with you. Hard stop. When you're going to any site, your driver's license goes with you.
Like, what are you trying to do? Hood rat shit? Like so, like nobody like knows who you are?
No, because I don't like losing my license, so I usually keep it in my van.
Right. Well, the thing is, if you're speeding, right, and you get pulled over, they can't take your license if you don't have it.
Yeah, but you better know your S number.
Oh, I know my number. That's what I usually give out if I had to move it out.
Yeah.
I've done it twice before.
That's 7997885.
I don't know it because I carry my license with me.
But there was a time in my life where I used to do the rat shit.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. But I'm saying when you work here, when you are doing anything where you are on site with our customers, you must have your license with you.
We have to do training on that as well.
I really hope not. That's why I'm addressing it right now, and I'm hoping this is enough. You got boots, right, Kurt?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Like,
Actually, the same day.
not ones the kitchen help uses?
No. I'm always happy there's this, it's called high workwear. There's one there. You know, I just got to put on boots, so I just went there.
Yes.
This one's on Facebook that looks really cool. They
Yeah.
were waterproof, steel toe, and slip resistant.
All right. Well,
FDA approved dog.
Are they EH?
FDA approved.
FDA approved.
All right. I wouldn't. They shouldn't be rated for internal use. So.
This arc flash stuff would explain why on the benchmark uniform website I didn't find any FR rated tank tops.
This is correct. Also, as a company, we
I'm gonna be in Florida, and you know it's
the summer weight is light. However, many of our customers will not allow you on site with short sleeves.
Yeah, you can't be dressing like a cholo.
No. Our FR portal does not have any short sleeve. We do not use them in this company. The summer weight is light, and you can roll up the sleeves, but most of our customers will not allow us on site if we have short sleeves on.
It's not good down the back, but it's nice going straight.
I'm glad you didn't do any backwards.
Yeah. Did you get behind the tractor trailer yet?
Oh, yeah.
Not backwards, but diagonally going up, like.
How many you found?
Oh, I'm not even.
I'm glad that this is actually keeping you entertained as we go through this.
No idea right now.
I guess I'll have to make more of those, like different versions of them.
Now I know, like, I'm gonna bring in like goon crayons.
That's not the takeaway I was expecting from
Those
this.
just don't taste good.
A+ on the sheet, C- on the crayons.
I'm fine with that.
No, I
They're-
like the crappy crayons. I like because it's the same ones you get when you go to like Friendly.
That's the whole point. That I'm not giving you a nice 16-pack of Crayola. I'm giving you a cheap 4-pack. And yes, if you need to bust out your own engineering crayons as part of that, so be it.
Oh, I'm getting the Trapper Keeper, I'm getting the fold-out thing of colored pencils, like, don't you worry.
Pencil box.
You can issue out crayon sets.
No, I'm not going to because you're missing the point. This is task failing successfully. No, we're not doing that. We're getting back into what we have here and the reasons why we do the things that we do. So, Nfpa 70E is part of a larger set of overall requirements, structures within the workforce, as well as regulations that mandate how we are going to work safely and ensure that the work that we are doing is going to be built safely, is going to be maintained for safety, and while we're at all of that, we're going to be following the federal regulations. However, I'm also not entirely sure how much longer OSHA is going to exist as an agency. Yeah, holding my breath on that one.
It all depends if they've been funneling money or not.
It's OSHA. They work on a shoestring budget as it is. You go back 30 years when OSHA was in its heyday, and you will find that people used to be terrified of the potential of an OSHA auditor coming in and looking for process or work violations where you would be cited on the site. Who here can think of the last time an OSHA auditor actually showed up on site? You can't because it doesn't happen anymore. They don't have the personnel in order to do on-site audits. It's entirely reactionary rather than proactive as it used to be.
I was on a site probably 10 years ago down in New Bedford.
Yep.
And 4 guys came on.
Yep.
OSHA. They just fucking ran through the whole site.
Yep. Yeah, that doesn't happen anymore. I mean, it was rare 10 years ago, but OSHA has been dealing as much as it can with a shoestring budget, but it's largely reactionary. It has the authority and ability to levy fines. However, it doesn't do the same level of enforcement action as it used to. And
Got this one company that were paving the parking lot,
yep,
and none of the guys had high vis on. They whacked every single person.
Yep. yeah,
Hefty.
it can be hefty. Mike, you have anything?
When you take a break,
We just took a break, so
okay.
yeah.
Too late.
No, leave it here.
I just want to confirm all these guys have safety, I got a couple of safety certs from Amgen. I just want to confirm everybody's safety.
What safety certs do they need?
It's just watch a video, get a certification.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll talk that through with all of them. The Amgen video?
Yeah, it's not fun.
Yeah, it
It's
is.
not just like a 5-minute video.
I know, but that's what we have to do for our customers.
You get paid for it.
Yes, you do. Unless you don't do it the morning of, and then no, you're not paid for it. You're going to sit in your car and you're not getting paid until you take that video. But if you've been given office time or if you've been told to do it, yes, you are paid for it. So in terms of the regulations that we need to follow, for the majority of the work that we are going to be doing, that is our commercial power customers, that's going to be OSHA 1910 and 1926. CFR 269 for a large portion of the work that we are doing. The utility space follows their own set of regulations that we largely don't get into, but for the most part, we're going to be dealing with OSHA CFR 1910 269. That's going to be a large part of what informs what we need to do for the work that we do, and that's also where a lot of the requirements that we have for training, PPE, for almost everything else that we encounter is going to come from this set of OSHA standards. It is specifically this set of OSHA standards which enables Nfpa 70E to be the enforceable standard that we're going to use, because ultimately OSHA says that you need to provide safety. It is your responsibility as an employer. How you do that is up to you. And if anyone, I'm sorry, I have these up here right now. I know not everyone usually goes through them. If anyone wants to follow along with an Nfpa 70E manual, or if anyone has questions on it, does anyone want a copy while we're going through this? Andy? Jay, could you hand that back? Does anyone else want to go through them? Cool. They're here if you need them. Ultimately, OSHA 1910 269 is going to be what empowers Nfpa 70E, because OSHA is not going to tell you how you provide safety. They just say that you shall provide safety, and if you don't, then you're going to be fined, and you're going to be fined repeatedly until you actually correct those issues that you have there. The closest thing that it comes to telling you that you need to ensure that the proper people are doing the work is going to be in 1910 CFR 333. Only qualified persons may work on electric circuit parts or equipment that have not been de-energized. Such persons shall be capable of working safely on energized circuits and shall be familiar with the proper use of special precautionary techniques, personal protective equipment, insulating and shielding materials, and insulated tools. So that's the first time that we start seeing the word qualified, and we're going to start using that with a capital Q. Who wants to take a guess at what a qualified person is? Because we see it a lot in our industry. What is qualified? Come on, anyone? Not even the electrician that we have who has to deal with it all the time? The two electricians that we have? Go ahead.
Person who is licensed and certified to be working on a system.
So that's not even necessarily licensed.
Are you certified?
Am I?
So there are many definitions of qualification. We will generally pull ours from Nfpa 70E. Ultimately, qualification comes down to one entity. Anyone have an idea on who qualifies you? Nope.
Your employer.
Your employer, yes. So Javier's got it right. Your employer is the one who ultimately stands behind and says whether or not you are a qualified person. And so to a certain extent, that is also me saying whether or not you are qualified to do anything. That is a matter of, there is no blanket qualification. You are always going to be task qualified. So you are qualified to do certain tasks while you are not qualified to do others. And the reason for that is a combination of training, awareness, as well as personal competency. We have a lot of brilliant people in the organization, but that doesn't mean that everyone is qualified to do the work that they need to. Who here trusts when Jeff puts on a flash suit and starts switching?
Don't fucking get him anywhere near it.
Exactly. Jeff knows the business. I'm not going to qualify him to don a flash suit and start doing switching. Is he still going to try it? Probably. But am I going to say he was qualified to do it? No, he was not. And we start seeing that word qualification through everything, because both from a safety perspective as well as from a regulation standpoint, that idea of qualification is what underpins all of this. A person must be qualified, and until you yourself believe that you are, and two, the company has invested in you that authority, then no, you should not be performing that work. Part of that qualification is training, which is why we are here today, but it's also going to be training on that individual task, whether it be in a simulated environment, whether it be on-the-job training, whether it be mentorship. But ultimately, qualification is going to come down to, has the employer stood behind you and ensured that you are qualified? Because that is going to be the very first question that OSHA asks if you have a lost time incident. They're going to say, was the person qualified? Can you prove it? And how were they qualified? Which is also one of the reasons why I need to generate the paperwork to ensure that you are, because it protects you and it protects the company. We need to ensure that you have every tool that you need to be successful, as well as every tool that you need to work safely. Now, in terms of the impact that OSHA can have and what those direct costs are going to be, OSHA has the ability to levy fines. They do not have the ability to just outright shut down a business. They can instead basically fine them into oblivion. As of 2024, I'm still waiting for the updated OSHA numbers for what their maximum penalties can be. There's something going on with OSHA right now, something people want to destroy the organization. But as of 2024, OSHA had the ability to leverage a maximum $16,131 per fine, 16,131 days beyond any abatement date. If anyone has gone through an OSHA enforcement action, they will identify what the issue was. They will tell you how long you have in order to abate those underlying conditions. And after that, you will start getting a fee for every day beyond that. And then $161,323 per violation when found willful or repeated. So that willful and repeated item at the end, because I know Bob and George have seen some willful and repeated workplace hazards. What does that willful and repeated mean when it comes to OSHA?
If the violations are still there but not been corrected.
So it's even beyond that. It's when, it's not just that they haven't been corrected, because if they're in process, but it's a matter of you knew better as a company. You knew this was an egregious violation because either you've been cited for it in the past, or it just defies common sense that you should douse all of your workers in kerosene before you put them on the production floor. That's willful negligence that you have right there. Or repeated, that they keep getting cited for the exact same thing over and over and over again, but they refuse to correct it. Because some companies, and this is the really scummy part, some companies will just take the violation, right? They'll just keep doing the same violation because it's easier to pay a fine, or at least tie up a fine in court, than to correct the underlying work issue that you have there. That is why I'm always asking you and soliciting you for the ways that we can improve, because I'm not going to tolerate our organization being anything that deals with willful or repeated hazard violations. When you see something, I need you to say something, and whenever there is an opportunity for improvement, please bring it up. I can't say it's going to be fixed immediately, but all of that data does form a very compelling picture of how we need to improve as a company with the work that we're doing. And that's just the tip of the iceberg, because those fines are usually the smallest portion of any enforcement action. The legal, the lost time, everything else that goes into that can usually be 10 to 100 times more than the initial fine. So while a company may be fined for $10,000, you can expect it to go as high as $1 million or more for the enforcement actions, for the legal remedies, and everything else that comes behind that, especially when you're dealing with something as serious as a workplace fatality. Usually one of the items that is going to end a small business. So while OSHA has the ability to levy these fines and has the ability to say that you must work safely, they don't really tell you how we accomplish that. Instead, we rely on Nfpa 70E. Specifically, the most recent standard right now is the standard that we use within our company, that is Nfpa 70E 2024. The reason that we use, and the reason that the majority of the industry uses Nfpa 70E as the de facto standard, is specifically this. OSHA has gone on record in several different letters of interpretation and has said if NFPA 70E is followed, a company meets the intents of the standards. NFPA 70E for many of our customers is going to be the easy button, as well as for us, the easy button in terms of how we provide electrical safety in the work that we are doing. And as such, it is going to be the primary means by which we ensure that all of you have the tools, the material, and every other potential benefit of working safely from what the structure of that standard provides. Now, from our engineering friends over here, one of the main visible items that we get out of Nfpa 70E is going to be the arc flash risk assessment. That's going to take the form of those stickers that we see on every single piece of our equipment. And for the folks that we have over here who are usually the front line in terms of educating our customer, do our customers understand everything that goes on behind this, or do they just want stickers at the end of the day? Yeah, they just want stickers at the end of the day. In terms of education and in terms of the way that you are helping them understand the requirements for adherence to Nfpa 70E, do you guys get into any of that education or any of those discussions? No? Okay. Why not? All right, good talk, guys. Thank you.
Good answer, Kirk.
No, it's not always your place. You guys are doing the studies and sending it off. Sometimes you don't even have the luxury of talking with the customer directly. But it's also important that I know you know the background of this. One, because you have field exposure, and I want you to understand the protections as well as the requirements of Nfpa 70E. But also, it tends to be one of the most major and visible portions of electrical safety that we play a role in. And the greater your understanding of the standard is, the greater the understanding you can provide to the customer, so that they don't just think, once I slap stickers on my equipment, I'm completely protected from liability and I have nothing that I need to worry about that. Because getting into other standards such as Nfpa 70B, if that equipment is not maintained, what does that do to our studies? It invalidates them entirely. Those stickers mean absolutely nothing if the equipment has not been maintained and has not been maintained in a reasonable time frame. So another question for you guys, when you do the data takeoffs, what is the time frame that Nfpa 70B says if it hasn't been maintained in X number of years, it is considered to have never been maintained?
5 years?
Yeah, exactly. So it's 5 years. If that equipment hasn't been touched in 5 years, and this goes out to everyone that we have here, if you are dealing with equipment that has not been maintained in 5 years and you are being asked to do live switching or live work on that, and the customer is saying, yeah, the sticker just says it's like 1.5 calories per centimeter squared. That sticker means absolutely nothing. That sticker is junk for that reason exactly, because it has been invalidated. That sticker is based on the assumption that the circuit breaker will actually open when you tell it to. It is based on the fact that that switch is let's say it's a Pringle switch, it's based on the understanding that when you open that switch, that the linkage and arms are not just going to crumble into dust when you open it for the first time. All of those are supposed to be guarantees when that equipment is properly maintained and insured for operation the way it's supposed to be. Bob, were you going to say something that looked like, okay, didn't know if you had something you wanted to share on that. So that most visible item, which is the sticker that we deal with, is going to be part of the arc flash risk assessment that we do. Something that we're very familiar with, but also something that we ideally are not going to take into account because under almost all circumstances, we're going to be doing de-energized work. Now, I know even for the folks that we have in this room, there's been a tremendous sea change in terms of energized work versus de-energized work. So we go back and I know several of the people in here were doing work in the electrical industry 20 years ago. What would you say was the approximate percentage amount of live work versus de-energized work that you would do, let's say 20 years ago?
10 to 1.
No.
You're saying it was 90% energized work and 10% de-energized work?
That would be so much more. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
I thought you meant 10 de-energized.
No,
Okay.
the other way around.
Yeah, it's the other way around.
All right, so, and now what would you say our percentage of energized to de-energized work is? I wouldn't say it's a complete flip of that, but,
It all depends on what you're doing.
well, let's just say in general.
Say
If-
80-20, maybe 70-30.
So you're still saying about 70% of...
No, other way around.
Oh, okay, other way around, that 70% of the work, being conservative, is de-energized. And yeah, I think I agree with that. I've seen a lot of customers that just say, we no longer do energized work here under any circumstances, just because the liability is that great. Yeah. So what changed?
People dying.
Yeah. Well, we've seen in the last 10 years, same amount of people have probably died.
Lawsuits. Yeah. Insurance got a little more expensive.
Insurance got more expensive. People were less afraid to sue as part of that.
COVID.
All right, now, let's calm down.
Too political.
Not too political, just doesn't have an impact on this. COVID has no impact on how electricity works.
You can't.
Okay, now we're getting too political. Drop it. But Nfpa 70E still makes a series of assumptions with what it means for that gear to operate the way that it's supposed to. One, that the equipment was properly installed in the first place. Difficult in Massachusetts because we have such a strong grandfather clause, but again, it makes the assumption that that equipment was properly installed to begin with. It is being properly maintained and it is being used in accordance with the way that it was manufactured and according to the installation instructions. How many people here have seen equipment that is not being used in the way that it is supposed to, at least from an electrical equipment standpoint?
I've seen breakers using switches,
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah. No, there's there are plenty of examples of that where that equipment is not necessarily being used. And so that means, again, you cannot necessarily trust those labels when you are being asked to do something like live switching. Those labels may not be indicative of the true hazard that you are exposing yourself to. So when it does come down to when you can don and doff your suit, Nfpa 70E has a series of tests for when you can be doing what are called normal operations versus items that are not considered normal operations. So a normal operation of equipment that is properly installed, properly maintained, and properly used means you do not have to don your flash suit or your PPE. That means that there is intrinsically not enough incident energy or that there is no reasonable hazard that would otherwise impact you while performing these normal operations. With that being said, how comfortable are you feeling about a 40 calorie fault being contained by a piece of 16 gauge cold steel?
Not.
No. No. But I'm just educating you on what NFPA 70E says is a normal operation. So a normal operation, that means one that you would not necessarily need to suit up in order to accomplish, would require that the equipment doors are closed and secure, all equipment covers are in place and secured, there is no evidence of impending failure. So that means live switching can potentially be done without a flash suit on. Do I want you to do that? No, not ever. Because that is a gray area and, in my opinion, a blind spot of not NFPA 70E. Understanding whether there is an impending failure or not usually requires much more information than we can get by just looking at that piece of equipment. Yes, someone was bringing up NERP before. We can look at some of the equipment that they have up there and know that it is in a state of impending failure. But when it comes down to switching, while there are allowances for doffing your PPE and being able to do that switch, do that switching, I don't want you to take that risk. I don't want you to be opened up to that potential risk while you're doing that. Whenever you're doing live switching, assume that equipment is going to fail. Be suited up so that you are as maximally protected as possible. So NFPA 70E has what is called the hierarchy of controls. This is going to itemize, and this is going to stratify the strategies that we can use in order to ensure that we are maintaining our safety. And at the very top of that is going to be elimination. Elimination is best exemplified by what? De-energize. Yeah, de-energize work. If you de-energize it, verify it's de-energized, lotto it, and ground it, that means that you have removed any potential for that hazard, other than, knocking your head when you stand up too fast. But from an electrical standpoint, no, you have removed every potential opportunity for that hazard. Next is going to be substitution. Substitution is one of those items that sounds really great on paper, but is almost impossible. What are substitution methods?
You backfeed a bus using a different breaker with a lower incident energy.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So you find an area where you are still potentially exposed to that hazard, but you are substituting it with one that you can better control or is of a lower hazard. Engineering controls. These guys are familiar with it. Phone a friend, someone. What are some of the engineering controls that we exercise? Maintenance switch is one big one. I don't personally like maintenance switches because I've seen so many of them left on or off in ways that they shouldn't. Awareness, what we are doing right now, be aware of what you have. Administrative controls, what are those? Paperwork. If you can't fix it, pencil whip it. That's what the Energized Electrical Work Permit is when you're doing that Energized Work Permit. And then at the very bottom of this triangle, you all know where it is because I've talked to you about this before. What is at the very bottom of that triangle? PPE. Say it out loud because that is your last line of defense for what you are doing. You are donning your PPE only at the end of everything because only at the end of exhausting everything on this hierarchy of controls because everything else has failed to prevent that hazard and protect you from it. So when you are donning your PPE, you are at your most vulnerable. You are at the point where you are going to be potentially directly in harm's way as part of that. Nope, don't need that right now. So I started off saying that by being here, this is part of your qualification. Your role as a qualified person, especially according to NFPA 70E, is going to be based on your awareness and understanding of the hazard that you are going to be in the line of. You understand the precautions needed to safely work around the hazards, and you're aware of the site, customer, and industry policies and procedures for the work. This is specifically a safety qualified person. Beyond this, for your task qualification, you need to know what work you are doing. You need to know how to do that work. You need to have the proper tools for that work. You need to have the proper training for that. So that means any task that you are doing, you are going to be specifically task qualified. You are not a capital Q qualified person for literally everything that you can come across, because that does not exist. It's all going to be based on what you are specifically task qualified for. In NFPA 70E, you're going to be prepared with the proper equipment to complete the work task and equipped with the proper PPE for the potential hazards. You're authorized to complete the work by a contractor, owner, or designated third party. For all of you as employees of Sigma C, you are only qualified by your employer. That is Sigma C. Or, more succinctly, one who has demonstrated the skills and knowledge related to the construction and operation of the electrical equipment and installations and has received safety training to identify the hazards and reduce the associated risk. So, when you're doing energized work or even de-energized work, for John and Kurt, our apprentices, what do you believe that you're qualified to do?
Switching.
You're going to kill me one day, you know that.
Definitely not snowboarding.
In all seriousness, what do you feel that you're qualified to do?
Maintaining, doing maintenance on like switches. That's about it.
So, the real answer is nothing. You are not qualified to do anything until directed to by the foreman or the senior person on site. He wants you to do work, because otherwise he'd have to do it himself, and we know that's not happening. But you are qualified by the designated representative, and that's going to be the test technician and the senior technician on site. As you continue to progress through your careers here, you will then become that competent and ultimately qualified person. But again, it's going to be a order of controls that it's going to flow from the person who is in charge at that site, the foreman or the crew lead, and is going to then be qualified by the other folks beneath them. And so it is important that, one, for all the seniors that we have here in the room, that you understand you are the one who is ultimately responsible, and you are the one who qualifies everyone else who is doing work on that site. And anyone else who is rolling up to that senior or that crew foreman or that site foreman for the day is going to be the one who ultimately makes those decisions. That is the hierarchy of controls as we have, and that's also the command structure that we leverage within this company. So, other items, let's say George and Eric are both seniors on a job that we have. Senior technicians that we have on a job, and they both tell John to do something conflicting. Who does John listen to?
Salt and pepper, not Eric.
Why?
Because he's usually
So they're both seniors on the job, but what you need to establish is for that job, for the work that's going on, there's also only one person who is in charge. From just a logistics standpoint, it's as simple as that. You can't have two presidents. No comments about Trump and Musk right now, but you can't have two presidents. You can't have two leads. You can't have two foremen for the day. You have one. Now, if you can't agree on who it is, then you call the office and you find out who it is. But I can't stress this enough. You only have one person, because from a liability standpoint, that is the person who's going to ultimately decide how that work is going to play out for the day. Yes, you can have multiple people in charge of different areas, but if you are unclear who the person in charge of is for a work crew, for multiple work crews, for an entire site mobilization, seek that clarity as quickly as you can. Because one, it just undermines the work that we do, and two, it undermines the safety of everyone who's on site. Any questions about this? Go ahead.
If there is a lead on site, it's very easily known.
Usually, yeah.
Because, like, say if I didn't know, if they asked me, like, oh, who's the lead? Nobody wants to claim being the lead, so they always point to the person. Like, oh, it's his job.
That person has to agree.
Yeah.
And if you find yourself in that position that you don't believe you should be leading that work for the day, then yes, you need to seek clarity. Because again, that undermines both our operations, but it also undermines safety when we don't know who's in charge and where we're taking that direction from. You can easily see that that safety can be impacted if we don't know who the lead is, because then we don't know who's responsible for switching. We don't know who is responsible for doing what on the site, and we can very easily lose track of the very important actions that need to happen in order to safeguard us and ensure that we are working the way that we need to. And the reason I'm bringing that up is I know we sometimes have those issues. Does anyone have anything on that topic that they want to cover? Because we do sometimes have the issue of we have multiple senior techs on site and we don't necessarily know from the back office who is the person who is leading the entire mobilization for that day. So people feel comfortable about it? Okay, gonna let it go.
Let it go.
If you are ever unsure about it, call back to the office. Make sure that you understand who that lead is for the day, because ultimately qualification does come down to that task, and depending on what you look like, depending on how you are acting, depending on what you are suited up for, yes, you can be qualified for one task, and while it looks like you're qualified for both of them, in this case, we have one guy in an IED diffusal and disposal suit and another guy in a flash suit. One should never do the job of the other.
One looks so much cooler than the other.
We can get you one of those if you want, but you have to wear it 100% of the time.
All right.
Bet.
Well, that goes down to the reasons why are most of our flash suits rated only up to 40 calories per centimeter squared.
Because anything more than that's too expensive.
No, that's not true. That you go back, you can still find like 60, 80, I've seen 200 calorie flash suits. It's just a matter of putting a couple more layers on it. It's pretty easy to do it.
I thought it didn't work like that.
Oh no, you
I
can.
was wearing it, category 2, then 4, but it didn't add up.
Oh no, it does. We'll talk about systems of PPE. So the reason why we max out at 40, and the reason
40 calories, it liquefies your organs.
Yeah, after 40 calories, we make the assumption that the blast and the pressure wave associated with a fault of that magnitude is enough to liquefy you inside of that suit. And anyone remember the scene in the Hurt Locker where the guy is running away from the IED that he tried to defuse but wasn't able to? And as he's running away, the blast hits him and you just see blood splatter to the inside of that. Yeah, I mean, even the IED diffusal suits, they can't protect you from that level of pressure hitting your body that way. And that's the reason why they max out at 40. Above that, you can protect yourself against the heat and the flash itself up to several hundred calories. That's not an issue. It's more a matter of the shrapnel and the blast wave that's going to level you right against the concrete behind you. Now, in terms of maintaining for safety, Nfpa 70E defines that. That's what gives our NETA standards a good amount of the backup. That's all we really need to talk about on that, because we're a NETA accredited company. We know the reason why we do this. We ensure that the safety and reliability of our customers' operations that we have going on. There is an ECS, electrical commissioning specification. All right, I'm going to power test. I got to pick up a whole bunch of them. The new ATS is coming out as well. I think I have a couple of copies. I'll get you one.
I didn't even know there was one.
Yeah,
You'll get it.
we'll get it for you. So a couple of other minor case studies that we have here, the reasons for maintenance, and several of you were alive for this. December 27th on 2018, we had a, what's that?
Who wasn't alive?
Well, yeah, you're right. Okay.
We don't have any 7-year-olds.
Some of you.
But did anyone see this happening? The gigantic blue glow across the entirety of Astoria, New York, when a CCVT failed? It looks surprisingly like something that happened in 1984 that was completely unrelated. But if anyone knows what you're looking at here.
Chernobyl.
What's that?
I'm talking about Chernobyl.
Ghostbusters.
Oh, Ghostbusters.
Fucking dweeb.
Didn't Chernobyl happen in 1984?
No, it did not. It happened in the 80s. But, oh, sorry. Make sure that that's playing. But again, a reason for maintenance and the reason for the things that we do, because failure happens every single day. This is in real time, and we're not going to see the entirety of the video because it's 2 minutes long. Yes, a Con Ed substation burned aluminum brightly for almost 2 minutes straight without a single protective device interrupting that flow of current and stopping it. Is Wesley at all surprised that a Con Ed station was poorly coordinated and their protective devices didn't actually operate when they should have? No, Wesley's not surprised by that. It's kind of the way that the utility does and runs it until it literally burns to the ground. But a good example of why that maintenance is so important. This was a single failed CCVT that continuously arced to ground as it destroyed the entirety of the substation, or not the entirety, but so it destroyed a large portion of a substation supporting girder that we had there. And yeah, still going on. And we don't need to go through all the case studies. Wyman Gordon, my very first case study when I started off with 3C. Another good reason for maintenance that we have there. In this case, it was a failed pothead where oil drained out of the oil-filled switch that we had on the side of the transformer. And that door was thrown across the wall and embedded in the far wall of that. I think several of you probably saw that afterwards. You did some, yeah. That was a fun one. Likewise, at another Wyman Gordon station, Wyman Gordon Worcester rather than North Grafton, I see what you did there. At another state, a fault on a utility line caused their incoming utility cabinets to arc over. And we still don't know to this day just how long that fault persisted from the local utility. But the guy that I interviewed there said, I had time to hear it, came down from my office, and I still saw it arcing. Yes, he was just sitting and standing there as it was arcing in front of him, thinking, ooh, this is cool. Again, another reason why we sometimes need to save our customers from themselves.
Those people shoot crayons over there.
What, do we need more crayons? Oh, yeah. So, at Sigma C, our electrical safety program boils down to essentially, we have a written site-specific program, and if we don't write it down, it doesn't exist. Yes, we have our safety manual for the organization, and then whenever we are on a customer site, we are beholden to their requirements that they have there. Sometimes they'll be spelled out in an hour-and-a-half long training that we have to do before we get on site. Sometimes it's just going to be part of a general agreement that we sign with them that I have to ensure that we are meeting before we perform work on those sites. Sometimes they are going to have such a laughably insufficient safety program that by nature of the fact all of you continuing to use ours for the work that you do, you are already going so far above and beyond what their own personnel use for that. But regardless, the main crux of all of that is going to be you also have that stop work authority. When you are being sent to sites where you do not believe that you can work safely, you have every authority in order to stop that. We are going to have annual work practices inspection. That is why I'm going to be doing this 4 times a year to make sure that you all have an opportunity to join me for this, where we can talk about any of the requirements that we have within Sigma C, as well as find ways that we can be doing better work as an organization. We provide you with the appropriate PPE, and when that PPE runs out, when that PPE is destroyed, don't feel that you just need to keep using shitty stuff. Please talk to me if there's anything that you need above and beyond in order to do your work well. Yes, Bob, I know we still have to patch your suit. And I've got the tape. We just gotta patch it. And then, wherever possible, investigate those incidents. When we have them, I am investigating them. So far, they have just been quality incidents, but that doesn't mean we treat them any differently. Those quality incidents means that we have an opportunity to continue to grow and ensure that they never become a safety incident that we have to then address down the line. It's very pretty, Andy. Thank you.
We'll show all my friends. Hang up on the bridge. We'll show all
Now,
my friends.
when it comes to the hazards that we actually do deal with, that is the incident energy that we see on those stickers that we sometimes just phase out of our minds and think is just an abstract number that we have to deal with. What is the difference between a just curable and just incurable burn? How do we quantify that in terms of the category of burn?
Second and third.
Yep, exactly. So second degree burn, a second degree burn you can heal from naturally. It's going to take a while. Bob, how long?
Wow.
Yeah.
I never took time to think about how long it took, but
Yep.
He's still healing.
yeah.
It takes a long time, but it does not necessarily require skin grafts. It does require continual care, but at third degree is where we need skin grafts because we've burnt away every single layer of subcutaneous skin at that point, and we're down to pure muscle fiber. That means the skin will not be able to regrow. So,
What word you just used?
subcutaneous,
English?
skin under skin. You got lots of layers of skin. When you burn them all away, it can't regrow.
Thank you.
First layer, first degree, go deeper, second degree. When you get down to muscle, it's all gone. Doesn't matter how good the muscles are. See, teaching is all about making that connection with students, and I could teach for the next 30 years, and I don't think I'm going to get through to Jay, but...
Listen, you've done a lot better than most.
But to your question, Jay, yes, you have multiple layers of skin. At first degree, you are just burning away the topmost layer of skin. You'll like this. It's called the horny layer. Yep, there you go. What's that? Because if you look at it under a microscope, it actually looks like lots of raised little horns. It's part of what gives your skin grip and part of what can be worn away when you wash them too frequently and your skin becomes exceedingly smooth and you lose your grip as part of that. But when you burn away that first layer, it will usually heal within the first couple of days after that. Second degree is going to completely eradicate the topmost layer of that skin and is going to go into your subcutaneous region where your skin will regrow, but it will take an extended period of time. When you get to a third degree burn, that means you have completely destroyed not only the skin, the subcutaneous layer that you have there, but you've also destroyed the nerve endings that you have there. That is skin that cannot regrow naturally, and because of that, that means that skin will require a graft if you want to have skin there on top of that. Below that is going to be a layer of fat. Yes, everyone has that layer of fat underneath their skin. When you start seeing white after you have experienced a severe burn, yeah, you need to talk to someone about that because that's one that you're not going to heal from naturally, and it's going to be a very long process as part of that. And that's the reason why we wear those ARC suits, is because our skin is surprisingly fragile. Really, really good for almost everything else that we encounter on a daily basis, but a large amount of heat tends to burn it off right like paper. So whenever you can be, use that flash suit in order to protect yourself, because while I have never experienced a third degree burn, I have met some people who have had skin grafts, and that sounds very close to what hell is depicted in the Bible. So please, never become a statistic on something like that. So,
today I want to show you how an electrical shock can cause severe internal damage.
let's look at our nature's favorite food for standing in for fingers and wiggly bits.
Comparable to human flesh. By pushing a conductor through both ends of the hot dog, connecting one end to an electrical source, and the other end to ground.
What,
you're gonna
electric
kick it down
boom?
to 120 volts
Yeah, we'll see 'em.
through the hot dog.
So it's easy here.
277, what it's like burning from the inside out.
Notice how the hot
Well,
dog burned
then
from
I've
the
got good
inside
news
out.
about lunch.
Tests have shown that it only takes 1/3 of an amp to put your heart in the ventricular fibrillation. Now let's see what happens to a hot dog at 7,200 volts. It still burns from the inside out. It's just
Single phase to ground at 15 kV.
Doesn't feel good.
Once we move into a new place and I have a true lab, yes, we're definitely doing this. But a good example of what it is and what it's like to be shocked by these different voltages, because the heating as well as the damage takes place from the inside out. The real danger is going to be beneath that skin layer.
Yeah, mine turned white
What's that now? Your hot dog?
when I was shocked by 7200.
What turned white?
The place where it came out of my finger.
Yep. And what was the recovery for like that?
It was a small point of impact, so it was
Yep.
a couple weeks.
Yeah. And even for something like that, a couple of weeks just from what was a very quick and thankfully relatively minor shock as part of that. Share with us, Wesley.
What was your incident? Did you record this?
I did record this, yes. This was before my time, so I'm still dealing with some details that...
I was alone at a solar site and I was testing a recloser. I needed to backfeed it with 120 in order to get the recloser closed, and it wouldn't stay closed, so I was trying to troubleshoot that circuit. There's a pad mount recloser, so it's all enclosed.
If the count was good. He just said to shoot him a text.
I should order anything supplemental. Just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Luckily, I was on.
Oh, we've got enough for 12. Tell them, order enough for four people. I've got enough food coming for 10. But
Add 4 people.
yeah, add 4 people.
You talked about it.
So moral of the story, we need to stop doing this.
Yeah, I'm starting to get to that point also. So,
Where's Fire Chris?
Say less.
we don't need to go through the calculation of that. Safety bay, yeah, exactly. So,
Saved my phone.
what's that? Aw, I love you too, Wesley. So, in terms of a couple of the misunderstandings about it, or some of the less understood aspects of it, incident energy has a linear relationship with clearing time. So that means the faster we can clear the arc for a number of different reasons, whether that be maintenance of the mechanism that is actually going to clear it, whether it be reducing the protective pickup settings in order to make a fault clear faster, that is going to have a direct and linear relationship with that incident energy. That's the reason why maintenance switches work the way that they do. If we can decrease the amount of time it takes for a trip unit to both identify a fault and then clear it, that means there's going to be that much less incident energy, or that much less fault energy that's going to feed that fault that we have there. Incident energy has an inverse exponential relationship with distance. So if you can, get as far away from the fault as you possibly can. That's why I want Bob and George as far away from that transformer we were talking about this morning, because I'm not sure what's going to happen with it. But that's the same reason why we use chicken switches or anything else that is going to allow us to switch, rack, or perform operations as far away as possible. And then finally, other system variables, for example, fault current, bus voltage, and conductor gap, do have an impact, but are less intuitive. You cannot necessarily say a 480 volt system has a lower or higher fault current or arcing fault current and or incident energy than a 15 kV system until you understand just how much current is available and what the operating devices are as part of that. There is no rule of thumb, even though it is going to be more prevalent that lower voltage, higher current systems will have greater amounts of incident energy that you have to potentially contend with. Ultimately, when in doubt, look for every opportunity to mitigate the hazard and or eliminate that hazard by de-energizing the system while you're doing that work. Now, I don't have them down here, but the little pocket reference guides that I give out, and I've got, the hell was that? All right.
Bob's pacemaker.
Sounds like he's way off.
Understanding what the different areas and what the different boundaries are when we deal with the equipment. For those of you who are looking to take your NETA exam, you should be very familiar with these because NETA 2 and NETA 3, they love to throw questions about the shock protection, arc flash protection boundaries that you have. At the center of it is going to be the exposed energized part. That is going to be where that flash or that incident is potentially initiated. Going out from there, there is going to be the arc flash boundary. That is the point at which your incident energy falls down to 1.2 calories per centimeter squared or less. That is the difference between a 2nd degree and a 3rd degree burn, and that means where you no longer have to be wearing your PPE when you are outside of that in order to protect you from the thermal effects of a arc flash. Now, closest to that exposed energized part is going to be the restricted work zone. Who can be in the restricted work zone?
Qualified personnel.
Qualified personnel only. What about the customer?
Hell no, you can't go.
So restricted is qualified personnel who are immediately performing or supporting that work. Even if your customer is qualified and wearing the proper PPE, if they are not doing the work or supporting you in doing that work, what do you tell them?
Hell no, you can't go.
There you go. Exactly. Take a note from Jay's book, then throw it away because you know I love you, Jay, right? So at the extent of that is going to be the restricted approach boundary. That means that no personnel who are not qualified and or not performing that work may pass. So even the customer who just wants to see what you are doing is not allowed in that zone. On the other hand, we do have the excuse me, the limited work zone that we have there. Who can be within the limited work zone?
Qualified personnel.
Yep, qualified personnel. So qualified personnel wearing the proper PPE. Likewise, unqualified personnel may be in this zone when continuously escorted by a qualified person and that unqualified person is wearing the proper PPE. So if the customer wants to be in there, yes, they have to be escorted by you and they still have to be wearing the proper PPE, not shorts and flip-flops, as some of our customers are wont to do. Go ahead.
What if you're doing the work and the customer's in the limited approach boundary? Does that count as an escort, or do you need an extra person to be there with them?
So it does come down to your comfort level if you have control of the site. So yeah, Jay said it better than I. Discretion. If you are in control of that area, it is your discretion as to whether or not you allow that person to be in there and if they need an additional escort. The first question I want you asking though is what?
Why the fuck you here?
Yeah, why? Why do you need to be here? I mean, yeah, it's the customer's site, but they hired you as the qualified person to do this work. Why do they need to be in the limited approach boundary when you are performing that work? And what are some of the reasons that we hear? I know you all know them.
You're doing it right.
Yeah, see what you're doing, want to make sure you're doing it right. I'm just walking through, thought I'd see what you guys are doing. There's a lot of different reasons that they say it, and they're all problematic because ultimately, yes, the customer can sit outside of that limited approach distance and they can talk to us from there. Now, how do you mark off the limited approach distance, or how do you figure it out in the first place? Yeah, yellow tape or any way of putting that. Barricades, plastic chains, whatever have you. Something just... What's that?
Cardboard cutout of Gandalf.
Yes, but you'll need multiple of them because it's a sphere, right?
Are those company expensive ones?
The cardboard cutout of Gandalf's. The first one is. Everything after that, I expect very crude representations thereafter. Also, you're responsible because once you buy one, you let anything happen to it. Yeah, your ass is grass.
Back to Bowman for you.
Now, the shock protection boundary is based on what? That is the restricted and limited approach boundaries. How do we figure that out, and what is it based on? Nope. So shock protection boundary is based only on system voltage, and it's a static amount. For whatever system voltage that you have, it is just going to be a static distance away from that exposed energized component. On the other hand, how do we figure out the arc flash boundary? You just said it, so you can say it again. There you go. The arc flash analysis is part of that. Yes, that one has to be calculated. The other one is based off of just a standard table, which is in those little pocket guides. And I have updated ones for 2015 if anyone wants them. I got them upstairs. 2025, thank you.
Hey, tough crowd, huh, man?
It's fine, I'm used to it. Now, in terms of the potential for our shock entry points, what are going to be the most common that we deal with? Yeah, our little grippies are going to be one of the most common ways that we have that. Also, almost anywhere else that we're going to have portions of metal on our body. So that is going to usually be belt buckles is going to be another area, especially when we are going in and we are bending over. This is going to hit something, which is another opportunity for that shock protection. What else?
Tools in your pocket.
Any tools in your pockets, or I don't even wear my rings anymore. And my wife has stopped being mad about that to me, so plus. But I do still wear a watch that I don't always do a good job of taking off when I start doing work in anything that is potentially energized. So it's going to be wherever we have those pieces of jewelry. I know a lot of people also wear jewelry around their necks for a number of different reasons. I know when I was training John to don and doff the flash suit, he said, I don't actually have to take off my jewelry just to prove to you that I know how to put it on. I said, what do you think? And I stared right at him, and he said, no, I'm verifying that you actually understand what needs to be done as part of that. But it is easy for us to forget that jewelry that we wear for a number of different reasons because it's on there all the time. And sometimes just having it next to us all the time means that we forget about it when it's going to have the greatest impact. So by show of hands, who has a piece of metal jewelry on them that they are wearing right now? All right, almost everyone. Who here can reliably... No, I'm good. I'm really, really good right now. Who here can reliably say, other than Jay, that they are taking off or out that jewelry before they perform work in any way that potentially impacts them? All right. So we have far fewer people who are saying that they regularly remember to do that. And it's important to be honest about that because of just how dangerous and how impactful that can be if we forget to take that off. And it's not even just the electrical aspect of it. Even when everything is de-energized, especially for things like necklaces, no, and not necessarily gold because gold will snap, but steel necklaces and rings that you have on your body, those necklaces can very easily become choke points or potential entanglement hazards, and those rings can lead to degloving. Does anyone know? Yeah, I know. I struggle to talk about it, but we got to talk about it. Does anyone want to try and make Jay puke by telling me what degloving is? Go right ahead.
So when I was in A&P school, I learned a lot about degloving.
Yep.
I saw, well, this isn't necessarily degloving, but we got showed videos of like people getting sucked into running jet engines.
Mm-hmm.
They also showed us actual pictures of what degloving looks like.
Yep.
Guy had a wedding ring on, and it literally took all the meat and the skin and the nerve out of his finger, and it was just skeleton.
Yep.
It was like you literally sucked off all the meat of a chicken bone,
Mm-hmm.
like a chicken wing, and it was just bone left. It was the like weirdest, nastiest looking thing ever.
How you
Fucking hate this kid.
No, you said yes. That's what you said yesterday.
Yeah, well, people change.
Yes. So again, when we are performing that work, do make every effort to remove your jewelry. It is not enough just that you are not performing work on your energized systems. And even for those of you who have the non-conductive wedding bands, because you still want to be wearing it, it does still represent a hazard with the work that we are doing. Find a way to remove it every time that you do your work, because as Matt just shared, yeah, there is sometimes no coming back from something like a degloving incident like that. And it can happen relatively easily just by catching on an extruded piece of metal that we are very quickly swiping our hand across. Degloving is very difficult to heal from because it literally rips the nerves away from the skin, bone, and muscle tissue that you are dealing with. So yeah, it's not worth it. Be like Andy, take off all your jewelry every time that you are performing work here. Yeah, no, now we're going to, he's not going to be able to eat.
What about today? I know his Polski got ripped off. Looks like what that guy do?
So, oh no. So in terms of the long-term impact of those shocks, how many people here, by show of hands, have been shocked in their life and career?
Is it a competition?
No, it's not a competition, right? If it's a competition, Barry is the only winner in the room right now.
No, I mean,
Oh, okay, never mind. Okay, so Barry's just shy. But the more you are shocked, the longer term impacts that there are. In fact, this is something that's only starting to be understood and more extensively studied now. These are called sequelae. These are the long-term impacts of repeated injuries. So by show of hands, how many people in this room have been shocked more than 5 times in their career? All right, 10, 20.
So that, the residual shock, like
Mike,
cables
that's
and stuff like that.
20.
All right, 50. All right, sounds good. Now, has anyone from those repeated shocks noticed any long-term effects or changes in...
I had manners before.
Yeah, and what have those changes been?
Oh, I'm so much more careful now. But
Well, that's the right kind of change that we
I
want.
used to be well-mannered.
But
physical? No, I never noticed.
yeah, physiologically, there you go. Physiologically, there is an impact on that, and those sequelae can lead to things like neurological disruption, chronic pain, or most commonly is actually blood and hormonal imbalance. That those repeated shocks usually go through the fleshy bits that are inside of our bodies that are, for some reason, really important in regulating hormones and blood levels. So as you continue to shock those fleshy bits inside of you, don't be surprised when your hormones change and you start going bald at the age of 24. Ooh. I'm just saying. I went there. Oh, recorded.
I told Matt I was listening to the radio on the way into work, and the guy was saying if you have a heavy stress job, it could cause you to lose your hair. And I went and told Matt when he was the operations manager, you know, heavy stress can make you lose your hair. He called me all kinds of names.
Yeah, I believe it. So the two most common shocks that we deal with, the most common shock is going to be the touch potential shock. That's when a piece of equipment, whether it be exposed energized component or a piece of equipment that should be grounded or otherwise de-energized becomes energized. We touch that piece of component and then through whatever ground or whatever lower potential that we have, we dissipate that shock through our body. Much less common, but sometimes much more insidious, is going to be the step potential, where, for example, a fault in a substation that you can generate a potential in between 2 points as you take that step. And for the men, which is everyone in the room right now, where does that shock travel through when we have step potential? Yeah, well, yeah, the dangly bits this time, different than the wiggly bits. Well, then the dangly and wiggly bits at the same time. That's called double jeopardy, and it's even worse than it sounds. Very unlikely, because step potential usually occurs in very high voltage areas such as substations with lines above 100,000 volts. And as you step across that area, the greater your stride, the greater that potential step, or the greater that step potential that you have. Very rarely encountered except in relatively poor installations or when you get out into very rural installations, especially high tension lines in rural America. This in the
utility lines as well.
down utility lines, exactly.
That's where that becomes
But in the 60s and 70s, this caused a lot of cow deaths before people figured out what was going on.
They have rubber overshoes to protect against that.
What's that?
They have rubber overshoes to protect against that.
Yeah, for the cows.
For us.
Yes. No, you have rubber overshoes to do that. But again, up here in the Northeast, the opportunity for step potential is next to nothing. But when you go to larger and more rural American substations, yes, it is something that you need to worry about. And as Andy said, down utility lines is a huge potential issue for step potential that you have in a local area. So yes, who wanted to see electric boom?
I love electric boom.
All right.
In the scene in movies that if you drop a bundle of live wire in water, it can electrocute and kill any creature in the water. I think it would be more believable if only the live wire was in the water so that the circuit could close through the body to the ground. But when the live and neutral wires are in the water side by side, I assume that electricity goes the shortest path and not much through the body. But I'm not sure 100%, so I'm going to try that myself. This is some dangerous stuff, so please don't try it at home. I'm what we call a professional dumbass. This is going to waste so much water. Let's do it differently. I have a glass container filled with tap water. I have a cable with exposed wire at the end that I'll plug into the wall here. And I can turn on the light with. So I'll put this wire in the water and see what happens. Nothing gets big.
No safety glasses. For anyone who doesn't know this channel, these are legitimate videos. He is an electrical engineer. He knows what he's doing. He hurts himself on purpose, but doesn't put himself in extreme danger. But he does do this in order to illustrate the principles of electricity. And I particularly like this video because, yeah, we are told by Hollywood that all you have to do is drop any voltage conductor into water and it immediately shocks you. No, it doesn't. It does create a step potential and it does create a latent hazard that is not immediately visible because you can put those conductors in water, standard 20 amp circuit, isn't tripping off anything in his house, nor would it, because there is very little current flow that you have in something like this.
What is this? Oh, there's a cut on this finger and the electricity can go through it much easier. You know, the flesh under the skin is much more
And he brings up a good point. Your skin, when it is fully intact, is going to be a relatively decent insulator. However, as soon as you have things like salt water from sweat on your body, cuts, abrasions, and lacerations, that is going to be a much higher potential for shock because it's going to have a much easier way of entering into your body. So when you are working in areas where you have bloody knuckles from working on equipment all day, or you are covered in sweat, that is going to make it that much more hazardous for you to be doing that work.
I readjusted the wire so that they are closer to the surface. I can still turn on a light with it. Now I wonder, is it possible to turn on an LED just putting it in the water?
It's almost like you know what's going to happen next.
Apparently not much, because the resistance of the water is too much to allow enough current to the LED and turn it on.
Yep.
Okay.
So again, water on its own, not a great conductor.
Resistance of the water. It's actually 700 K and rising for some reason. Actually, it's more conductive than I thought. There must be some minerals mixed with this tap water. Now let's measure the resistance of my finger. It's actually around the same. Now I plug in the power and I read the voltage in the water. You can see at this end I'm not reading much, but as I'm getting closer and closer to the wires, I'll read a higher level.
And so that's the idea of step potential, that between 2 points you have differing levels of potential. So you can have that current flow if you are far enough apart that you're going to have that voltage difference between any 2 points.
Read a higher level voltage. I think it agrees with my theory. If the live and neutral wires are in the pool side by side, the voltage across the body is much smaller. But if the live wire is at one end and the neutral is at the other end, the voltage across the body will be much larger and more dangerous. Fine, let's add some salt to the water now and mix it up. Now that I have mixed the salt in the water, you can see the resistance of the water here. It is actually less than 70 kilovolts and has significantly dropped. but it doesn't mean that the voltage in the water will be any different because the resistor network in the water has remained the same. Let's plug it in and see what happens now. Wow, look at that. The electricity.
So you can start seeing the difference with the level of salt that we have in our system, especially on a hot day where we are continuously sweating and depositing salt on our skin. That's going to have a very significant impact on our ability to be shocked by these different voltages that we're dealing with, even down to 110 AC and 125 DC.
Let me put my finger in the water and see if it makes any difference. Wow, the water is actually much warmer. There must be a lot of power in the water. This is the finger with the cup. Wow, I'm starting to feel the electricity here. Ouch, it's hurting. Let's try the other finger. Wow, the water is very warm now. I feel nothing with the other finger. I'm starting to feel it here. Ouch, between the wires. This is violent. Can I put my finger in the water? Ow.
Like he said, professional dumbass.
I can turn the LED in the water. Hey, look at that, it's turning on. And with the distance, the brightness goes up and down. Oops. Never forget about the dangers of your experiment. This is turning violent. Look at this. I barely feel anything at this end. It's much worse. The water is extremely hot now. Let's look at the wire. Look at that. It's gone. React.
So, one video I like to show as part of a lot of people's misunderstanding, going the wrong direction. A lot of people's misunderstanding of water and electricity, as well as the more insidious aspects of it. Because again, without something like a GFI, in order to protect us while we are doing that work where we do have that amount of water in the area, how often are we getting completely pure demineralized water if that conductor, if that piece of equipment is potentially wet? Not ever. And at times of year like this, let's say that it's right after this big freeze, we get up to 50, and now we're trudging around these sites and we're potentially dropping our equipment in this sandy, salty, slushy mix that we have now. Now that insulating property of that water is almost gone and we formed a really excellent conductor, those opportunities for those shock hazards are going to be that much more amplified. So yes, you can't just throw the conductors in water and expect that your protective devices are going to trip off, because again, your water is a really poor conductor. On the other hand though, it does form an insidious hazard that is behind the scenes that you're not necessarily going to understand is there until it's too late. So based on what we've learned so far, let's rate the shocks that we have here from the greatest amount of current passing through the body to the least. What do we think is going to be number one?
C.
All right. What's after that?
So the least resistive path?
Right now, yes. So it's the greatest amount of current, so the least resistive path that we're potentially using. No. So let's see how they rank up. E is going to be the greatest because it comes down to surface area. That's going to be the greatest amount of surface area, has the lowest resistance. So E is going to be the greatest amount of current just because of how much meat we got here that's potentially making contact with what we have. After that is going to be B, because again, we have our feet, which are going to provide a lot of surface area and is usually going to be a large amount of surface contact because we have our weight on that. And then our skull is also a relatively wide area for that. After that, our grabby bits that we have from there, going to the individual parts, because even when making full contact, usually the first point of contact is going to be a single finger. Now, in terms of those shocks from most dangerous to least, I think you have a better idea of what they are. These are not the rankings. What are the rankings of these shocks from most dangerous to least dangerous?
I think it's the complete opposite.
All right, so take bets. Let's get some action going on here.
I think B, most dangerous.
See.
Those are your organs.
All right.
Terrain.
So John's got it right. When it comes to the most dangerous, we got to be talking about the squishy bits and the organs that it's going to hit as it goes through our body. So it's something that's hitting both our brain and our heart, and a single shock is going to be the single most dangerous shock that we can potentially deal with. After that, again, we have lower resistance, which is going to be why D is slightly less dangerous as part of that. Going on to A, we're still going through our hearts. C is going to be the fourth that we have on there. I need a better way of making sense of this. C and fourth is tough. With item E being our least dangerous, maybe one of the ones that is most significant for us as men, but is also going to be least dangerous because it's not harming any of the things that we need to live. No jokes, guys. Fine. Now, it's always the low quality ones, but in terms of the actual impact of these events and the insidious nature of energized equipment and how quickly it can destroy a life, yeah, this is actually pretty graphic content. So if you don't want to see it, just look down at the placemat and do your coloring. But this is, unfortunately, out of China, I haven't been able to find any real information on the underlying cause of this and any investigation, if any, that was done after this fact. But what you can't see in the frame right here is above and beyond the frame of the camera, there's an energized medium voltage line. So you're going to see several workers that are moving a metal scaffold. Yes, if you've seen this one is terrifying. This is real, and you will know the exact moment they make contact with that line. Right at that moment, every single one of them. And it keeps going on from there. This is, you see the people are actually starting to smoke. Now, all four of them died, but the grip response is pretty significant here. The grip response is what's going to cause, at a certain voltage, your muscles to contract rather than to snap back. And that's going to be what continues to connect you to that exposed energized component and what's going to lead to that danger. So I'm glad it's relatively low fidelity because I don't want to see this in high definition. But this is the danger that we face. This is what electricity is waiting to do to us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, at all times. Don't ever become one of these statistics. So we've got 45 minutes of content left. Let's take another quick 5-minute break. We'll get back here. Lunch will be here at noon, and we'll finish up and move on to CPR, first aid, and AED. 5-minute break, everyone. Thank you. What's that?
Someone couldn't wait.
That's fine. We don't body shame here.
Sorry that I was late. I kind of came as soon as I could.
No, it's fine. I knew you weren't going to be here for Nfpa 70E. You'll be here for CPR. It's all good.
All right.
Yeah, it's all good. You told me. It's nothing you got to worry about.
Shame.
Oh, stop it.
Double checking.
I was thinking of the worst case.
That's why I got that game.
Oh, well, how hard did you pull it? You made holes in it.
Yeah, you
No,
really.
my
Straight was cutting through. Oh, yeah. Made a boom.
Yeah, there. You did.
I made a boo.
I made a pow. You gotta hang them all up after.
You gotta sign it.
Except for Kurt. Nothing except Kurt.
You're only allowed to sign it if you hold the crayon in a fist, though.
Kind of how Wesley holds the pencil anyway.
I never learned when
Bury the wrist. Bury the wrist like that. Oh, you use your thumb, yeah. You're fine.
I don't know, this isn't my hand that I write with. I'm eating chicken tenders with my right hand.
Right with the thunder.
I made them out of placemat material. They are supposed to be stained with whatever you were eating at the time.
You just want to ruin the art.
It's pretty, I'm not done with it.
my wife wants one.
What, one of these?
Yeah, do you have any more? I'm already done.
I don't have any different ones. I didn't expect you guys to be so good at these.
How many differences are there? You don't have one?
Oh, I don't remember. Do you need another one, Andy? Do you want to take some home? All
My
right.
wife does well.
Yeah, I got plenty here.
You got those down there?
How many different coloring,
6.
what do you wanna call them? Six?
Crayons?
No, I don't want crayons. I just started looking at it earlier.
He's got more.
I found 6 different.
Do you want one, Bob?
Oh, you got that one.
Well, there's plenty there.
I don't think they.
Oh, no, I have to, you don't have to.
Found 5 right off the bat. But for 26, yeah, I'll be there.
I got 6.
One of us only got 2, 3.
That one's gonna be a 2.
Well, I think the third one's yesterday, that's what was the other end.
Oh, yeah.
Back then? Yeah.
Matt,
Yes, sir.
these go on the end we're testing or on the opposite end where we're testing?
Those go on the opposite end. Those go on the insulated end. So we connect to one side. That's meant to insulate the yellow cuff chardon elbows.
Yeah, no.
Keep it from breaking over.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
How come we only got 20?
Because that's all I made right now. I'm not so sure they're going to work. But, look, that's a pure science experiment. I'm not sure it's going to work.
If you do that, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, we're going to have to test the cables individually, anyways. Because so one for each. I just want to know if it works. If it works, fantastic. I'll get proper equipment for everything else. In fact, we have proper equipment for everything else. The bigger problem.
We got 2 days to test 3
Yeah.
cables.
Yeah. Well, the bigger problem has been, I haven't been able to get any parking stands or any equipment that matches those 35 kV yellow cuff chardons, because they're the only manufacturer in the entirety of the industry that makes an interface that size.
That'd be interesting testing now.
Yeah.
So we already have nothing. It makes you love it.
No, the hope is that you don't. The hope is that you don't. It's high voltage epoxy.
Oh, everybody does it.
Yes.
Eric, we have him hold one.
Yeah, Eric can hold. Well, that's where his hair standing up, where he is.
Easy sack.
You've been sitting on the couch for a while.
Yeah, no, I've been sitting on the couch for like the full month.
All right.
He knocked her up and then boom, there you go.
So we're going to get into the last topics that we have for Nfpa 70E here today. Now, first I was talking about how we quantify those shock protection hazards, and those are going to be based off of the voltage that we have for any system that's operating as it is. Depending on the voltage, the higher the voltage, the greater the distance we need to separate ourselves from that potential hazard in order to protect ourselves from it. Now, for how we ensure that we are going to know what we're supposed to protect ourselves against, the distances, usually the arc flash label is going to be the first and foremost that we are going to to be able to consult in order to determine how far away we need to be, what the potential hazards are, and where those hazards are going to put us when we need to exercise safe work. Again, those hazards are only based on energized equipment. When we de-energize it, we remove the hazard, but not until we have verified that it is indeed de-energized. We already talked about the limited and restricted approach boundaries as part of that. So I'll skip those over very quickly. Likewise, when we are working on overhead lines, we have another set of minimum approach distance that we have to observe. The reason that this is separated out is that when we are dealing with overhead lines, while we are dealing with 3D space with exposed energized components inside of switchgear or other equipment, when we're dealing with exposed lines, that is most of the utility lines that we'll be dealing with, we have a 3D zone of rejection that we need to be observing, because getting too close to those when we are utilizing either even our insulated man lifts, but generally our uninsulated metal man lifts, if we are getting too close to those energized lines, we need to ensure that there is no opportunity for that voltage to arc across air and then ground itself out on our equipment. In fact, I know just this past year we have scuttled several jobs because we were being requested to get up too close to energized exposed aerial lines. And the customer says what? Oh, those aren't on, or you're not going to be touching those, right? So you can get up there right next to the other one.
Fuck, I can.
Yep. In cases like that, that is exactly where you exercise your stop work authority. If we can't do it safely, then screw the customer. We are not going to do that work. They don't understand the hazards that we potentially have to be dealing with, even if we're not working on that line. But when we start getting within 5 feet of that energized 15, 25, 35, 115 kV line, you are going to have that much greater amount of distance between you and that line in order to ensure that that arc is not going to go across the air and ground itself out on the piece of equipment that you are riding. So we already talked about what the allowances are for being able to go within those boundaries that you have there. Realistically, does the customer ever need to be in our restricted approach zone when we are performing work? No, they don't. And that restricted and limited approach boundary is established every time you energize your test equipment. When you're performing VLF on it, if you're putting 44 kV on a cable, the other end of that cable, if it is just in free air or otherwise exposed, you are creating limited and restricted approach boundaries away from that. Cordon it off and don't allow the customer to get anywhere near it. Don't let them foul up your tests so that you have to stay there an extra 3 hours for the day. Don't let them hurt themselves because they just wanted to see what you're doing and it looks so cool, and what's that sizzling sound and why are you punching me? Now, the arc flash boundary is going to be the one that is calculated. That will only be available either from the label or via Nfpa 70E, the arc flash assessment tables. That is a really poor way of assessing where your hazard is, so don't use the tables. Use the stickers wherever possible. So now we're going to quickly go through some of our hierarchy of controls with our last topic that we have here today. And one of the main ones I'm going to talk about is going to be PPE, because we are most familiar with that. Everywhere possible, we are exercising elimination, substitution, and engineering controls. That is the reason that our engineering department exists, is for us to quantify the hazards that we are potentially dealing with, to quantify the hazards that our customers are dealing with, and find ways in order for them to work more safely, more reliably, and with less opportunity to completely fuck all their shit up as part of that. Yes, I know I'm still recording. But for personal protective equipment, this is going to be one of the items that we are most familiar with, that because we are going to be wearing this on a regular basis. We have done everything that we can in order to reduce those hazards. You know that we are. Everywhere possible, we are trying to do de-energized work. However, in order to even verify that our equipment is de-energized, or in order to perform switching, in order to perform those last few potential actions where we are going to have to potentially interact with energized equipment, we're going to need to know what our PPE is capable of, and more importantly, what our PPE is not capable of. So, we're going to start talking about this. One of my favorite videos on PPE.
Imagine that,
It's not a real video. I really wish it was, because that person would be dead. The horn would go straight through it. But it's a particularly good fake because, yeah, best form of PPE. Just wrap yourself in bubble wrap and you're fine. Now, in terms of the PPE that we regularly don as we are putting our equipment on, what is Sigma C's standard work attire no matter what work we are doing?
Cat 2.
What's that?
Cat 2.
Well, yeah, Cat 2.
Long sleeve pants.
There we go. Long sleeve pants. What about
Toe shoes.
safety toe shoes?
Undergarments.
Cotton undergarments. Silky cotton undergarments. What's that?
Safety glasses.
Yep, exactly.
The steel-toe shoes, do they have to be electrically rated?
They have to be electrically rated. So yes, they do not necessarily have to be steel toe. They can be composite toe, which is becoming a very popular option because composite toe are very, very light. However, they still have to carry an EH rating, an electrical hazard rating on it. It'll be stamped either on the insole or on the heel, EH. Go ahead.
Customer brought up, and I hadn't thought of it before, but I got a pair of muck boots for cold weather that are EH rated, composite toe and everything. But does EH rated doesn't necessarily mean they're arc flash rated, so they couldn't melt.
Correct. EH rated means specifically electrically hazard rated. That means that even in the event that the upper leather is worn away, it will not create a shock hazard. They are, what's that? They're not leather. Yeah, your muck boots may not be arc rated, and so there's always that interplay between what is arc rated and what is EH rated. Now, generally, EH rated is also going to carry an arc rating, which is one of the reasons why most manufacturers of EH hard boots are going to just use leather as part of that. But your muck boots, you're right, it may be worth looking further into or sending me a link of what you bought so I can determine is it arc rated or not. Now, when it comes to the hazard that we're potentially dealing with in terms of what equipment is going to burn onto our body, our boots usually are one of the least concerns that we have just because of the limited exposure that we have to that arc. But it's a very real concern that you should be aware of, especially you're usually donning your muck boots because you are in deep water around energized conductors potentially. Yeah? What's that?
Or 8 degrees.
Or 8 degrees in a snowstorm. So it is important because usually we take for granted those boots are also going to have some level of arc resilience. That's not always the case. Same thing can be said for our undergarments. I have yet to find a pair of boxer briefs that do not have any form of elastic in it whatsoever. If anyone has had luck with that, great, but there's just, I can't find anything that doesn't have some elastic in the waistband. Otherwise, it just doesn't stay up. But thanks a lot, Jay.
Oh, we didn't box.
Yeah, no body shaming. But that does extend to what you have. And to what Jay was asking about before, every PPE system is exactly that. It is a system. You can achieve higher levels of PPE by layering multiple layers on top of each other. But that does mean that the outermost layer is going to need to have the highest rating potential for the entirety of the system, and all of the clothing together must be rated to work as a system. So, for example, our arc flash suits that we utilize are part of an overall system. For that full body coverage, 40 calorie per centimeter square, we must be wearing the bib, the jackets, and the helmets all at the same time in order to achieve that 40 calorie per centimeter squared rating. Now, how many of you just sometimes put on the jacket and the hood because the bibs take a while to step into? And you can be honest, I'm not going to.
Depends on the line of work.
Depends on the line of work. Yeah, you're protecting the highest part of your body, but the area with the greatest amount of exposure, that is your mid-chest, to achieve that 40 calorie per centimeter squared rating, just the jacket is not enough. It is the layer of the jacket and the bib that comes up here, which is what protects what is generally going to be your area of greatest incident energy exposure right there. So systems can be layered to achieve that, and it is important to understand for things like our arc flash suit, they are wonderfully light. They get that rating by being worn all at once. You may not achieve the same level of rating if you are wearing just the jacket on top of that. I'm not certain, but the reason that you have both the bib and the jacket that go over this is because this is usually going to be where you have the greatest level of incident energy exposure and the greatest amount of surface area that's going to absorb that potential incident energy that you have there. For gloves, you know how often you need to turn them in? Every 6 months. If you are issued a brand new set of voltage rated gloves that are still in their bag, how old can they be before you say, no, I'm not going to wear these? 1 year. 1 year, yep. They can be aged up to 12 months on the shelf. And that will, as soon as you open up the bag that they came in, they are going to be good for 6 months after that. So you can have gloves that are expired, but if you're being issued them, make sure you understand, one, why they have a potential expiry date that exceeds when you are supposed to be using them. Likewise, I'm going to tell you a story about our owner who got really, really pissed, even though I told him not to do that. How does everyone store their electrically rated gloves? Their vinyl gloves. Who here stores them with their leather protectors on and leaves them on? All right. So cuff up or cuff down really doesn't matter. You can have your own preference. I highly recommend that you do not store with your leather protectors on site or on the gloves. I got into a little bit of a fight with Jim on this because he said, I don't think you ever need to do that. That doesn't make any sense, Matt. And so his gloves were sent back as failed. He stored them slightly wet with his leather protectors on. They discolored the rubber underneath. Slight discoloration. In fact, I've got them right over here if you want to see what it is. As soon as we sent them to the manufacturer, they didn't even bother testing it. They immediately marked it as deficient and failed and sent them back to us because with that slight amount of moisture that was on it, it caused the rubber to discolor, and that's exactly what they look for. They look for discoloration because that thorough discoloration of the glove means that the chemical properties of that rubber have changed. They don't bother testing it because they're not going to take the liability of, well, you know, maybe it didn't impact the electrical properties of that rubber. I had to listen to Jim rant for just a while, and he said, well, no one ever told me I don't need to store them with leather protectors off, but I do recommend store without the protectors on because under dry conditions, yeah, there's generally not going to be any problem, but it's not unusual. Leather is going to be a natural substance that can absorb water, and for that reason, yeah, if you store it while it's wet, it may discolor the rubber, and when it does, that means that those gloves are very likely going to be failed and they're not going to be able to be retested or reissued. It's not that we're ever going to withhold them, but I'm just saying it does bear an impact on whether or not you have those. And if anyone wants to see what they look like, I got them here. Now, other PPE that we wear, we did cover all of our standard kit up that we have. So that is going to include a hard hat. We at least start the day with a hard hat on. In many cases, when it is not an active work zone, we are able to take that hard hat off. That is going to be at the permission of the customer as well as at the discretion of the crew foreman. You don't make that decision for yourself until you are told you no longer need that hard hat. Likewise, we are going to be wearing our Cat 2s. I'm wearing a Cat 2 uniform right now. Several of you are not. That's fine. But while we are on site, we have long sleeves. I know Matt was complaining that we don't have short sleeves on the FR portal. You're not going to get them. You're going to always be issued long sleeve shirts, I promise you the summer weights are actually very, very nice and light. But most of our customers will refuse us work on the site if we are wearing a very bright yellow t-shirt from another contractor that we used to work for. Anyways,
It's the start of the new year.
There we go.
Until the start of the
You were given until the start of the new year, and I appreciate you.
Now, Brooke said rules.
Electrically rated steel toe boots, as well as safety glasses. That is the minimum that we wear. Anything else above that is going to go above and beyond. I know we used to have a prescription safety glass guy come in and issue safety glasses for that. I'm going to see if I can start getting that going again. But anytime that you do not have the proper PPE, let me know. I will make sure and get it issued to you. Now, for those of you who were here last June when I did this, yeah, it's Matt with a nail gun. Don't worry, it's fine. But go ahead.
I got one question related to protection. Are there special, like, FR ear muffs?
So most of the skull screws that you get are going to have a electrical and an arc flash rating on them. So they're going to be made out of high temperature silicone. They do not, they don't melt. Now I will say the little puffy polystyrene ones that are on every single one of those will melt into your ear canal. Don't wear those when you're donning your suit. Wear the skull screw brands that we have as part of that. Yeah.
Do we have those available?
We have a box upstairs on the back shelves, and I think we still have them. Otherwise, if we don't, let me know, and I'll be happy to buy another box. For the most part, for hearing protection that we're dealing with, if you're on just a factory floor, yeah, wear the little foam ones that they do. Those are not made of silicone. They will melt, so don't wear those with your arc suit or when you're doing anything that potentially exposes you to that heat.
Taking that into consideration. What did you call the kind you had?
So 3M skull screws, you'll usually see them. They're instead of being the little rubber or the little rounded tip, they're going to look more like a cone. And so they're usually gray and they're squishy. You put them in the same way, compress them and put them in. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But they are going to be electrically and arc rated, so they are the better product to use when you're using them with that. And if we don't have any left, just let me know. You know I'm always happy to order the stuff that we need to do work safely.
Yeah, you like buying stuff.
I do like buying stuff. Thank you for noticing. Look, that's for research and development. Now, in terms of the other equipment that we have, I'm saying that our safety glasses are going to be an important part of our standard kit up. I would say your safety glasses are that much more important than even your hard hat, because a lot of times we are not going to be working in an active construction area. The hard hat's very nice when we're inside of gear and we stand up suddenly and we bonk that instead of our skull. But almost everywhere else, I do expect you to be wearing your safety glasses because of how much of an impact that can have. Think of the story that Bob told at the start of the day of the impact that those safety glasses had. If you had gotten molten copper inside of that, what would that have done to your vision, Bob? You probably would have lost your vision. Now, when it comes to our safety glasses that we have and the functionality that they provide, there is a very big difference between what might say it is rated for impact, for hazard, versus what they can actually do. So on here, and I demonstrated this over summer, but I know not all of you were here for that. These I bought from Amazon. They say that they are safety glasses, safety sunglasses. I think the whole description was probably 3 pages long. Ultimate safety sunglasses, look cool, very cool breeze, nice to have. If any, will get you laid. However, safety glasses need to have a very specific ANSI rating in order to protect you from what you are potentially dealing with. That is what's that? I don't. Can I have yours?
These are fucking $1,700 glasses. You are not touching them.
Yes. Safety glasses that I have here. So these safety glasses that I've already used right here, I have what are supposed to be rated safety glasses from Amazon. Just bought them. They cost about $5 a pair. Got a 3-pack for $15. Standard brad nail gun that we're going to see how well it fares as it goes through that. So the nail went most of the way through. I put it in diagonally. It actually shattered a portion of the safety glass and went straight through that glass without it being stopped in any meaningful way. So let's try going straight on. In this case, went right through, hit my mannequin, and left a nice little dent right inside of his eye. On the other hand, for those of you who have seen this, you know that actually rated safety glasses, I don't have my other pair, and I need to demonstrate this. I need to do this. While it may not completely save you, these were $1 safety glasses from Amazon also. Got them in a 20-pack. They cost $1 a piece, and they have the proper ANSI rating. Now, while this may not look like a much better condition, you can see that it stopped the brad that I put through it, but only after we got it about an inch into it. But this is the difference between a scratched cornea and a completely destroyed eyeball. Having the proper rating for that safety glass means that these will actually stop an impact. These will actually stop shrapnel, and they will not shatter when they are subjected to that trauma. So that means these will actually protect your eyes. Don't get the really cool looking ones that will get you laid. Get the nerd glasses, or if you don't want that, get the over goggles that you have on top of it, because I promise you they are not built the same way. And while this may not look like the best outcome, I promise you it's better than that brad going all the way into your eye that you have there. Was that food?
You just ordered for John?
I did just order for John. Says food is on the way. Let me see here. It's just the drinks. I think the real food's coming.
You got bevies too?
What's that?
So you got some bevies too?
Couple of bevies.
Couple of lattes.
All right. Hi there. All right. Thank you. Could everyone give me a quick hand? We're going to set up in the back. Could you make a little space on the back there, and we'll get everything set up?
Everyone.
Sorry.
Stay right here, young man.
Thank you so much.
There you go.